unveiled. Yota NM1 is built to the highest standards and has a host of unique features. 15-layer physical security, highly redundant power infrastructure, an advanced automated building management system that monitors Yota NM1, a fail-safe cooling infrastructure, and a wide range of support services, including dedicated cargo material handling area, dedicated office space, transport facilities for customers, and on-site lodging arrangements for both short and long term. With our long list of certifications, which continues to grow, customers are assured of all the necessary compliance and best practices. Yota provides both hyperscale co-location for wholesale customers and fully managed Yota tech services for enterprise customers. Under co-location, we offer full floors, suites, cages, and individual racks with varying power densities and fit-out options as per customer requirements. For hyperscale customers, we offer dedicated, customized buildings on co-location model and interconnect their floors and buildings through redundant fibers. Under Yota Tech, we offer a wide variety of innovative enterprise IT solutions on a pay-as-you-use model. At Yota, we strive to deliver unmatched scalability, quality, innovation, and economies of scale by leveraging our real estate expertise, power distribution capabilities, data center design, connectivity solutions, and deep domain expertise in managed IT services. We aim to deliver value that's backed by innovation, partnerships, and trust, so that our customers get peace of mind, assurance, and above all, happiness.
दोबारा चला दूं? हाँ, 2 बार चेक कर लिया उसने। अख्तर भाई, इसका लैपटॉप का ऑडियो खोलना और फोन बंद कर दो।
I present to you the 8th wonder of the
India has the second fastest growing digital economy in the world. By 2025, India will have 850 million smartphone users and 200 million smart TVs, collectively consuming more than 5 hours of video data per device per day. India is increasingly becoming digital, shifting rapidly to web collaboration, e-commerce, and e-payments. Emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT, robotics, and the emergence of 5G are going to extend the usage of the internet to billions of devices. India is also witnessing a shift of enterprise workloads from their captive data centers to public clouds or hosted private clouds due to the pay-as-you-use models and enormous scalability they offer. Enterprises and the government of India are now focusing more than ever before on self-reliance in their supply chains within the country, also leading to more data localization. All these trends are leading to the data explosion in India. To store and process this ever-increasing data growth and centralized cloud workloads, India needs large-scale data center parks instead of standalone data center buildings. These data center parks need to be scalable in terms of space, power, internet connectivity, support services, and a wide array of innovative value-added IT services. Yota, India's youngest managed data center service provider, is building data center parks in Navi Mumbai, Chennai, Greater Noida near New Delhi, and has upcoming projects in Mumbai, Pune, Kolkata, and Gift City in Gujarat. Yota is backed by India's leading real estate, energy, and construction major, the Hiranandani Group. What makes Yota unique is its ownership of resources, massive economies of scale, ability to tap into vast amounts of renewable power for its customers, and unmatched expertise and experience in data center design, construction, and operations. Yota NM1 is Asia's largest and the world's second largest Uptime Institute Tier 4 certified data center facility that is spread across 820,000 square feet with a capacity of 7,200 racks, 50 megawatt power, and 4 fiber paths connecting the major telecom operators and internet exchanges. It is located at Yota Data Center Park within the 600-acre Hiranandani Fortune City campus in Panvel. Yota NM1 is built to the highest standards and has a host of unique features. 15-layer physical security, highly redundant power infrastructure, an advanced automated building management system that monitors Yota NM1, a fail-safe cooling infrastructure, and a wide range of support services, including dedicated cargo material handling area, dedicated office space, transport facilities for customers, and on-site lodging arrangements for both short and long term. With our long list of certifications, which continues to grow, customers are assured of all the necessary compliance and best practices. Yota provides both hyperscale co-location for wholesale customers and fully managed Yota tech services for enterprise customers. Under co-location, we offer full floors, suites, cages, and individual racks with varying power densities and fit-out options as per customer requirements. For hyperscale customers, we offer dedicated, customized buildings on co-location model and interconnect their floors and buildings through redundant fibers. Under Yota Tech, we offer a wide variety of innovative enterprise IT solutions on a pay-as-you-use model. At Yota, we strive to deliver unmatched scalability, quality, innovation, and economies of scale by leveraging our real estate expertise, power distribution capabilities, data center design, connectivity solutions, and deep domain expertise in managed IT services. We aim to deliver value that's backed by innovation, partnerships, and trust, so that our customers get peace of mind, assurance, and above all, happiness.
Summit.
India has the second fastest growing digital economy in the world. By 2025, India will have 850 million smartphone users and 200 million smart TVs, collectively consuming more than 5 hours of video data per device per day. India is increasingly becoming digital, shifting rapidly to web collaboration, e-commerce, and e-payments. Emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT, robotics, and the emergence of 5G are going to extend the usage of the internet to billions of devices. India is also witnessing a shift of enterprise workloads from their captive data centers to public clouds or hosted private clouds due to the pay-as-you-use models and enormous scalability they offer. Enterprises and the government of India are now focusing more than ever before on self-reliance in their supply chains within the country, also leading to more data localization. All these trends are leading to the data explosion in India. To store and process this ever-increasing data growth and centralized cloud workloads, India needs large-scale data center parks instead of standalone data center buildings. These data center parks need to be scalable in terms of space, power, internet connectivity, support services, and a wide array of innovative value-added IT services. Yota, India's youngest managed data center service provider, is building data center parks in Navi Mumbai, Chennai, Greater Noida near New Delhi, and has upcoming projects in Mumbai, Pune, Kolkata, and Gift City in Gujarat. Yota is backed by India's leading real estate, energy, and construction major, the Hiranandani Group. What makes Yota unique is its ownership of resources, massive economies of scale, ability to tap into vast amounts of renewable power for its customers, and unmatched expertise and experience in data center design, construction, and operations. Yota NM1 is Asia's largest and the world's second largest Uptime Institute Tier 4 certified data center facility that is spread across 820,000 square feet with a capacity of 7,200 racks, 50 megawatt power, and 4 fiber paths connecting the major telecom operators and internet exchanges. It is located at Yota Data Center Park within the 600-acre Hiranandani Fortune City campus in Panvel. Yota NM1 is built to the highest standards and has a host of unique features. 15-layer physical security, highly redundant power infrastructure, an advanced automated building management system that monitors Yota NM1, a fail-safe cooling infrastructure, and a wide range of support services, including dedicated cargo material handling area, dedicated office space, transport facilities for customers, and on-site lodging arrangements for both short and long term. With our long list of certifications, which continues to grow, customers are assured of all the necessary compliance and best practices. Yota provides both hyperscale co-location for wholesale customers and fully managed Yota tech services for enterprise customers. Under co-location, we offer full floors, suites, cages, and individual racks with varying power densities and fit-out options as per customer requirements. For hyperscale customers, we offer dedicated, customized buildings on co-location model and interconnect their floors and buildings through redundant fibers. Under Yota Tech, we offer a wide variety of innovative enterprise IT solutions on a pay-as-you-use model. At Yota, we strive to deliver unmatched scalability, quality, innovation, and economies of scale by leveraging our real estate expertise, power distribution capabilities, data center design, connectivity solutions, and deep domain expertise in managed IT services. We aim to deliver value that's backed by innovation, partnerships, and trust, so that our customers get peace of mind, assurance, and above all, happiness.
Good morning, everybody. I request all of you to please take your seats. We are going to start the inaugural session shortly. Request everybody to please be seated. We'll start in another 5 minutes. Thank you. Please take your seats. Everybody requested to please take their seats. We are going to start the inaugural session in 5 minutes. All the speakers in this opening session are here with us. We're going to start, so please don't go out of the hall now. Entry is exit is barred, entry is open. So we are just going to invite all the speakers, so please stay with us and please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together in welcoming the speakers of the inaugural session of 3rd CII Summit FX. We have with us Mr. Apurva Chandra, Secretary, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Director General of Software Technology Parks of India, Mr. Arvind Kumar, Ministry of Electronics and IT, Mr. Biren Ghosh, Vice Chairman of CII National Committee on Media and Entertainment and the Country Head of Technicolor India, and Mr. Rajan Navani, President of India Digital Gaming Society, Chairman of India at 75 and CMD of Jet Synthesis. With that, we request Mr. Biren Ghosh to please start CII Summit FX 2022.
Honorable Secretary, Mr. Apurva Chandra, Director General, STPI, Mr. Arvind Kumar, my colleague and friend Rajan Navani, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests in the audience, members of the press, what a delight it is to be here live at an event that brings together the best of the best over these 2 days. We wanted to make sure that we signal the path on the road on which we are all traveling in something that has been curiously called AVGC. And if those of you in the audience are new to this term, the next 2 days will make you completely familiar with it. What we are planning to do is to hear the opening remarks from our distinguished guests. There is a curtain raiser, as the program says, that we will come to immediately after this panel concludes its opening remarks and its address. So do stay back for that, because we're going to show you some things that the world has not seen, because it got finished in India a couple of days ago. So when this panel steps down, we will request the Secretary and the Director General to take a seat in the front so they get the full-on view of what we are going to present. So with this, I will say that the journey at CII has been, for this committee and for this Summit FX, was born in isolation, when all of us were Zooming each other remotely. And we had 2 wonderful editions of it, even in those circumstances. So we are going to make sure that this becomes, one of the flagship dedicated events for this industry as a subset of a much larger media and entertainment summit that we also have later in the year in the middle of November. That's the CII big picture. But slowly and steadily, as you'll see from the facts and the figures and the report that's going to be released, this industry, which was 1 or 2% of the entire media spectrum, is now clearly over 18 to 19% of that total and is growing at a faster rate. And that's why we are here to put our heads together between government, academia, industry, professionals, technology providers, and advisors and consultants to this cause. You're going to hear a lot of first-time announcements, because there have been a very active group that has been working for several months under the stewardship of the Honorable Secretary, also called the AVGC Task Force, put together because of the statements made earlier this year in the budget by our Finance Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman. But we also have a video clip that is more precious than all the other clips that we are going to show you, where our Honorable Prime Minister has signaled that this industry can become the future of Indian storytelling. So with those words, may I please request Mr. Arvind Kumar to come up and give us his address. Thank you.
Good morning. Honorable Secretary to Government of India in Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Sri Apurva Chandra ji. Vice Chairman, CII National Committee on Media and Entertainment, Mr. Biren Ghosh ji. Chairman, India Digital Gaming Society, Sri Rajan Navani ji. It's my privilege to share this dais with my one of boss secretary, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. As I am Director General STPI, and in fact, STPI has been created 30 years back with the mandate to promote IT industry in this country. Mandate was very clear: to promote, to enable. It was not for making the regulations. In fact, STPI has done a wonderful job. Instead of regulating any aspect of the IT industry, we enabled them. So at that time, IT industry's issue were a connectivity from India to outside the world. That was the main, because Videsh Sanchar Nigam was only one of the service provider, internet service provider, who is providing bandwidth at 64 kilobits per second. That is not to all places of this country. We have taken this big task on us. We have taken bandwidth in satellite. We have taken transponder in satellites. We have provided the required bandwidth for IT industry. Today, when I meet veteran of IT industry, they always say, whatever today I am because of the STPI. If STPI was not able to provide that very connectivity, then we were not able to export software from this country, and nobody could have known who is Infosys, who is Wipro in this country. This is the first thing, connectivity. Second issue was, you have to have lot of permissions from various sources. You have to go to Reserve Bank of India to get your foreign remittance. You have to go to state government to create IT park. There were a number of issues. STPI has created single window system for IT industry. You just come to STPI, we will issue a soft tax certificate. That certificate will be sufficient for foreign remittance or anything. Third was, laptop was very costly. PC was very costly. In our center, we have created mainframe computer. You come and work there. So there were three big issues of the IT industry. We have handled it and we succeeded. Today, the revenue of IT industry is $227 billion. I think after 30 years, for this AVG sector, we are at the same place. In 91-92, IT industry revenue was $1.5 billion. In fact, in 2000, it became $8 billion. I think we are more or less in the same. Gaming, we have $1.5 billion, and similar revenue we have the whole for AVG sector. So therefore, we need enablement for this sector to grow, like we have done in our IT industry thing. So just I was jotting down the point, what could be the issue today for AVG sector, like we have identified. Our senior officers in the government of India has identified those three issues and they have established STPI. So I've divided this into two parts. One is 3 T's and 3 C's, which is required for this AVG sector. 3 T's I jot down is, one is talent, second is trust, and third is training. When we see talent, I think IT industry, what they have given us, they have given a very good pool of talent in this country. Though we all are incidental engineers, since we were good in 12th, our parents has put in conveyor belt, and finally we become the product and become the engineer. And some Infosys and Wipro has got us just, yes, they are good engineers. We were not engineer by choice, but this force of parents has become good asset for this country. At that time, either you can become the doctor or you can become the engineer. But that creation of engineers by our parents, the whole credit goes to our parents. They have created engineers like us. Today, we can say with the proud that yes, we have talented pool of engineers in this country. There's no dearth of artists. There's no dearth of technician in this country. We have full of talent. I think talent is good for this AVG sector. Second is trust. Today, when we talk in terms of the gaming, we talk in terms of anything animation, you create a software product and that required trust. There is no country in this world which has more trust than our country has. People want to use the software product because this data is going from here and there. Data is being accumulated somewhere. So we have talent, we have trust, and then training. Training is lacking. Actually, our engineers has to be reskilled. Our engineer has to be upskilled. We all are software engineer, but it's difficult for us to visualize augmented reality. It's difficult for us to visualize extended augmented reality. How it's possible? How can you create 3D product? How can you think of Web 3.0? How can you think that there will be a 3-dimensional virtual product will be sold in the market? I mean, we can't think of, because we are the engineers of 90s. So therefore, what is required for AVG sector is to create good training program for this country, and the people who are already working in IT industry, they can be upskilled, they can be reskilled for this very sector. So these were the 3 T's we identified, and there were 3 C's also, which were connectivity, content, and commitment. So connectivity, I think now government has already announced merger of BBNL and BSNL to create more synergy for providing optical fiber to each and every house of this country. We have a big plan called BharatNet. Now it's being operated by Bharat Sanchar Nigam Limited. So we are already on the path of creating fiber to the home in this country. And recently we have also conducted the auction of 5G, which will give wireless connectivity to the game players, to the AVGC people. And this 5G has also been auctioned in record time in this country. And surprise to everybody, the day people have deposited the money, next day they got the frequency spectrum assignment to them. It takes 3 to 4 months. Whole auction process takes 2 years. This all happens in 3 months. So government is very much willing to do connectivity, to provide the connectivity each and every citizen of this country. Second is content. We have a lot of content. But the basic problem which I can see from the content is we have content in silos. These content has to be integrated. Somebody is doing something on Visual Studio, somebody is doing on VFX something, somebody is doing, but this is required to be integrated. Then we can have good content for this thing. And third is the commitment. I think the beginning, Mr. Biren Ghosh told, government has highest level of the commitment for this industry. We have already created task force. Prime Minister of this country sees this as one of the important sector for the growth of this country to create 1 trillion economy in 2025. So this commitment from the government is completely passionate, unmatched, and unparalleled. Apart from this, government has, because this AVG sector is going to create number of software product. We have already in place, it's called National Software Product Policy, which envisages 3.5 million jobs, 7 to 80 million revenue in 2025, and 10,000 startups, which is working on software product. So government commitment as far as the policy is concerned, we are at the right place. Government has already created policy and they are continue to create the policy. As far as STPI is concerned, like I told, our focus was promotion of IT. Now our focus is to create more and more centers for entrepreneurship in this country. And we have 20 centers for entrepreneurship. Out of them, for your surprise, 6 are dedicated to AVGC. We have 20 centers for entrepreneurship. All centers are domain specific. Like for fintech, we have center at Chennai. For automobiles, we have center at Motion, Pune, it's called Motion. We have for medical electronics, we have center at Lucknow, which is called Meditech. Similarly, for AVG sector, we have 6 center for entrepreneurship. I want to distinguish between center for entrepreneurship and center for excellence. Center for excellence, when I was in Department of Telecommunication, we have created center for excellence along with some IIT, some IIM, least to say they have not given the desired result. Those become the academic. STPI Center for Entrepreneurship are entirely different. This is completely industry driven. It is driven by Biren Ghosh, not by Arvind Kumar. No sarkari karan. Whether it is a expert on that, whether it is a chief mentor, all is industry driven. And the best part is problem statement comes from the industry. So when the problem statement is coming from the industry, it is a more chances to succeed those startups. First and foremost thing for any startup to grow, that they need right problem statement. Is being mentored by people like Viren Ghosh. We are providing access to market. We are providing making arrangement for fund. And we also have a scheme, it's called Next Generation Incubation Scheme, where we provide seed fund of 25 lakh rupees to startup, irrespective of the sector. We have one at Mohali, which is called Neuron, where we have selected 109 startups have been selected. We have Image at Hyderabad, which is working on VFX. We have one VAR COE, which is at Bhubaneswar. We have selected 21 startup there. We have Emerging Tech at Imphal. We have for animation, we have at Shillong, and for gaming, we have at Aizawl. So this is not that we have created those center for entrepreneurship only at Bangalore or Delhi. We have created even at the Northeast. So we want to tap talent of tier 2, tier 3 city as well. Indian AVG sector has the capacity, it is my belief, to become zenith of Digital India and hallmark of Brand India, dream that our Prime Ministers also desire. With this, I wish all the success for CII for this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar, for the 3 C's, the 3 T's, and all the others, all the other words of advice. And yes, STPI has certainly shown the way in transforming the centers that you had all over the country to be put to new use after the sunset clause came in for the IT sector. And it is very true. And I think there are reports that are going to be circulated today that talk about how we are at the similar stages where IT was. We've spoken about that at length, but that's the roadmap ahead. Without further ado, I'd like to call the Honorable Secretary, Mr. Apurva Chandra, to please deliver his special address to us.
Mr. Biren Ghosh, Mr. Arvind Kumar, Mr. Rajan Nawani, ladies and gentlemen. It indeed is a pleasure to be here. And as I'm told that after 2 years that we are having this as a physical summit, and good to see so many people without masks today, so that we can recall the faces later on. In fact, I had visited Bangalore about a month back and to Technicolor and the state, Karnataka State Center for AVGC. And there, Mr. Biren Ghosh had taken my 360-degree profile. And I thought today my avatar would be here, and I did not be here. But I still don't see my avatar, even after a month. So, Mr. Ghosh, that promise is still pending. AVGC has been a priority sector for the government, and that was evidenced in the announcement during the budget, where the finance minister announced that a task force will be created. And that task force has been constituted under my chairmanship, and we have been working now in association with all the industry, including CII, FICCI, Biren, Ashish Kulkarni, and all the rest. And now for over 6 months, almost 6 months. And we should be coming out with a report within a month or so. But that, I must caution, that is a report which would be submitted by the task force to the government. And then the government will take a view on the report, and it will go through various ministries and finally to the cabinet before we can finally announce the report of the or the policy, the model policy of AVGC by the government. Again, the good thing is that this task force is represented by all the major ministries which are related to AVGC. They are represented. We have 4 subgroups within the task force, one on education, another on skilling, third on gaming, and the fourth on incentives and infrastructure needs for AVGC. And like for the education sub-task force, it is chaired by the AICT, director of AICT, includes the ministries of education, that is the school education, the higher education, NCRT, CBSE, etc. Skilling sub-task force is chaired by the secretary of Ministry of Skilling. Then commerce, DPIIT, they are all represented. So we hope that the reports of the sub-task forces, when they get integrated into the combined report, since all the ministries have worked together with the industry, people like Biren and Ashish and all the other industry stalwarts, including from CII FICCI, that we would be able to come up with a holistic report and to fulfill the aspirations of the AVGC industry. And it should not take much of an effort to get it through from the government, because all the concerned ministries and everybody is already on board. The AVGC sector per se is, of course, on a very high growth path, and that is what the government recognizes, because what happened with IT over 20 years back, and that is what AVGC is poised to do in the next 15 to 20 years. Not only the filmic content, which now today comprises almost 50 to 60% of that is animation or virtual reality, but even otherwise, I mean, my son recently bought an Oculus of Meta. It is still a high-end product, 50, I think costing about 40 to 50,000 rupees, but I think that is the way the world is going to go. Immersive reality, virtual reality, where the kind of scope which it has, not just for gaming, but even for, let's say, a product appreciation or building, design, manufacturing, all sort of things can happen in immersive reality. And all that is something which is yet to be explored. And then in some time in the future, such sort of meetings would be attended by avatars only and not really physical presence. So these are the things which are of the future. 25 years back, when we look at 25 years back in 1997, when mobiles were also not there and internet was had hardly happened, one could not imagine what is happening today. So 25 years hence, when the Prime Minister urges us to imagine what India is going to be in 2047, what we think of is only in today's perspective, what is happening in technology today. What happens but the pace of technology development always takes us by surprise. And I'm sure that what happens in 2047, we can't even imagine today. So, but in that future, that I'm sure that AVGC sector will have a very, very prominent role, because that is the thing which is the emerging technology, and that is this area which is going to define what our next 25 years are going to be. And that is why this particular sector is extremely important. Indian AVGC sector has done very well. Companies like Technicolor, Prime Focus, they have won awards in Oscars, BAFTAs, and they are now the backroom, and they are competing with the best in the world and doing the work for the top-notch work, which is being recognized throughout the world. Gaming is, of course, still somewhat in a, I would say, in a regulatory flux. There is still some uncertainty on who is to regulate gaming. Normally, we feel that all industries run away from getting regulated, but this is one industry which I find that they are very keen that somebody should start regulating them. And some ministry should take ownership of gaming, but that is an area which is still undecided. But gaming, of course, provides a huge potential. And I&B, of course, would be looking at the content part of gaming. The other regulatory part is still undecided. But the content part itself provides a lot of scope, because that is India, again, like in AVGC, can be the backroom for the content creation for the entire world. The National Center of Excellence, which was also announced sometime back, 2014 or so, it is again hanging fire for almost 7-8 years. But I must say that now we are reached almost the final conclusion. And the proposal is before the government. I would not like to say much before the government actually approves it, but we would like to start the NCOE in close participation with CII, FICCI as partners and the industry as partners, rather than the government going on its own, so that it is industry-led rather than government-led. But we would like to be partners in that particular effort, so that the concerns of the industry are duly reflected and it is operated by the industry rather than the government. The scope for AVGC lies in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And Ashish once told me that they are getting work done in places like Satna and places and far off places. And just recently, last week, I was in the high hills of Himachal Pradesh, and I was pleasantly surprised, even at 13,000 feet, 14,000 feet, the connectivity was immaculate. While talking on a WhatsApp call, I did not lose it even once in remote hills. And even in such remote places, the Department of Telecom, STPI and things like that, they have done excellent work, because remote places, now even the farmers told me that they are looking at prices of apple they're checking the price of apple on the internet, and they are not getting cheated now. So there is a tremendous scope. People are very talented in our country, and with this sort of connectivity, there is immense scope if we are able to harness the talents through our efforts in education and skilling on AVGC. The data cost also in India is, I would think, it is the lowest in the world. Just 4 or 5 months back, I was in Dubai, and their 1 GB of data was costing 1,000 rupees. While in India, nobody even talks of data cost. There, my Arab escort, in fact, he was also saying that the data cost pinches him. So if it pinches an Arab, then one can imagine what would it have been in India. But that is the excellent work which the government has done. That data here is so cheap that we don't even think of consuming data. So India provides a tremendous scope, not only as a market, because we also, because of these low data costs, we are also a market, whether it is gaming, whether it is animation, whether it is filmic content or whatever. And also in terms of creativity, creation, if we are able to provide our talented workforce with proper education and skilling. This task force will come out with a report which will talk of how to provide skilling to our youth, and also provide courses during school education. And now with the new education policy, which provides a lot of leeway in how to leverage this education in the post-12th, and have courses which can be which can be in AVGC and which can lead to education in other fields also, so that it is a cross-cultural field, and AVGC can be integrated in the entire education setup. So we look forward to the report of the task force, which again has been prepared with the industry, with all the concerns of the industry getting reflected in that particular task force, and we'll work towards its early adoption, early clearance by the government. And we hope that AVGC will be the sunrise sector for the next, will be the next sunrise sector in India, like the IT sector. and provide the impetus for us to go to the $5 trillion economy. Thank you.
We will now have the release of our own report. While the government report is in the works, CII has brought out its own report on CII perspective on the state of AVGC sector. We are just going to have a brief release of that report. So we'd request all the dignitaries on the dais to please unwrap it and release it. We have the wrapped versions. This report is available on our website. So there are QR codes available outside. You can scan those and you can download this report on your mobiles. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chandra, for those encouraging words. Today is going to be a really important day in actually unveiling not just this report, but the things that we spoke about. We have in the next 4 sessions following the curtain raiser that will come after this, we have a deep dive by the panelists who have been working in the subsectors that Mr. Chandra talked about. And therefore, we have a session on education, we have a session on skills, we have a session on what the industry is looking at. So you're going to see in a participative mode. In fact, it will be almost like a consultation with a wider group here at the CII Summit FX for each of those panels that are constituents of the final report that Mr. Chandra referred to. Thank you very much for those encouraging words. And sir, very glad to know that the national COE is on its journey for its approvals, because that's something we're looking forward to. May I now call upon Rajan Navani, who is the president of the India Digital Gaming Society and the chairman of CII India at 75, to please deliver his closing remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Biren. Shri Apurva Chandra, the Secretary, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Mr. Arvind Kumar, Director General, STPI, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, of course, my dear friend, Biren, Ashish, many others from the industry. A very good morning to all of you, and thank you for being here. So at the outset, let me begin by thanking our Honorable Secretary, Shri Apurva Chandra, for taking his time to be here on behalf of CII. It also gives me pleasure to thank Mr. Arvind Kumar, who has shared some very interesting insights on this sector. I'm going to take this from a little different angle. I've had the privilege of chairing India at 75 for CII since 2007, when India actually turned 60. And we were looking at what could a multi-stakeholder platform led by industry help create for India as we look at the next 15 years. We talked of 1992. There was a 15-year period between 1992 2007. A lot of economic liberalization had happened. How do we accelerate and turbocharge that? And that entire exercise over the last 15 years, which we are celebrating today as our Amrut Mahotsav, has seen tremendous change in what our country has been able to achieve, especially when it comes to unlocking our youth power, seeing the energy that has got created. And I see a lot of young people in this room. So I'm taking this opportunity to talk a little bit about how can we really unleash that over the next 25 years. Our Honorable Secretary talked about the Amrit Kal, about the ambition of our current government to see this next 2.5 decades position India in a position of global leadership, where we talk of bringing the Sone ki Chiriya, which India was at some point in the world, back. And I'm saying this because as we look at that future, I think we realize that we are not a country which only celebrates 75 years of independence, but thousands of years of culture and history. And I think AVGC as a sector really gives us the opportunity to showcase that, to position our country in a position where we can actually showcase to the world what it means to be a country of several thousand years. How do we really take, whether you talk of storytelling or a soft power, how do we influence the methodologies by way of which the world will operate as we move to the future? And my view here is that we have to take, that 1 in 10 people in the world under the age of 25 demography along as we talk of this. I mean, we are privileged as a country where, really 1 in every 10 people in the world is not only an Indian, but is an Indian under the age of 25. And if the next 25 years have to unlock any power, it has to be that demography. And I think what we really have been able to see, particularly around this journey as we move from India at 75 to India at 100, is the aspirations that will not only link them to livelihoods, but also to the mechanisms of being able to unlock that. And I think, therefore, the AVGC sector, both from skills, from the ability for us to be able to create entrepreneurial opportunities, startups, and scalability, play a very large role. In my capacity as the president of the Indian Digital Gaming Society, I want to make a few comments on the gaming aspects and how we are really seeing this unlock as a tremendous opportunity for the future. I think casual gaming moving to esports or professional gaming, which brings together, I think, the confluence of technology, youth, culture, social networking. As we have seen in the pandemic, many people made friends through gaming ecosystems, actually unlock communities and get people to work together in many areas. I think gaming has an opportunity to be able to define not only what it means for India to play a key role in the global supply chain of a $180 billion global industry, which is already larger than the music and film industries combined, but more importantly, to see how we can create products in India for this mass Gen Zs and actually use that as an ability to go global. I think therein lies this opportunity over the next 25 years. As the Honorable Secretary also mentioned, that there is a large thinking going on, inter-ministerial discussions, inter-industry discussions on how will this industry shape up. And we are excited about the new opportunities it will bring, particularly with technologies like VR, AR, XR. You can go on into that, what is real, what is mixed, and where are these going to converge, but also the movement from Web 2 to Web 3, with ownership becoming in the web world, becoming an important aspect of that future. I think all of that's coming together is going to enable gaming and gamification to also cut across many other industries. And we are seeing that happen in healthcare, surgeries being performed, a lot of simulation happening through gamification techniques. Learning and education is going to be massively disrupted by the way in which we will see all of these technologies play out. So I think as we look into our future, I'm truly excited by the opportunities of what AVGC can provide, not only for us to be able to create great excellence here in India, but position ourselves for the rest of the world. So again, thank you for being here. And over the next 2 days, as Biren said, we will look at many discussions, and I look forward to all of you having participated in that. And again, thank you very much, Apurvaji and Arvindji, for being here with us. Thank you.
The clarion call has been sounded, but now we will raise the curtain. And for that, I will request the honorable members of the dais to take a seat in the front so they get a full-on view of a few remarks that we want in order to really kick this off. If we are in an audio-visual setting, then we have to do that. So please, sir. Yeah. Can we have a big round of applause for the opening comment? That's right. Wonderful. So, how do I take this forward? In the next 10 to 15 minutes, we're just trying to take you around many of the things that are going to happen over the next 2 days. Give you a sense of if you have made appointments outside of the Lalit, then you will be tempted to cancel them all. So that's the purpose of this next presentation. Okay. I'd like to just start by saying that we've already said it a few times. This is an event where A, the V, the G, and the C, all of which can have huge events rather than this on their own, kind of have a place to come together. And I think Mr. Arvind Kumar talked about this integration of different silos that should actually find a way to come onto a common platform. There have been conversations with the government also about creating something of a platform in the next year, perhaps, where we can actually bring the world to India rather than A, V, G, and C running around to different markets all over the world. And that's very much a thought in the making. So without further ado, I'm going to go into these brief remarks by taking you to into the world of AVGC. So today, basically, the media has been transforming, right? Consumers want something that is unapologetically spectacular. They want to leverage technology to create a gazillion pixels. You have no idea what it takes to make a pixel perfect picture. In the old days, when you had a camera, they said, you take a shot. Today, you make a shot, right? And breathtaking imagery is really what this whole story is about. The experience to arouse feelings, to arouse sensations that release those hormones and those neurotransmitters within all of us brings joy to adults and kids alike. We have over the last 7 to 10 years tried to make the point that animation is not necessarily for kids alone. I think everybody enjoys getting onto this colorful, quirky, squashy, stretchy world that is a kind of an emotional roller coaster for all of us. And I think more and more in the last 2 years of being isolated, we've looked at unimaginable settings. We spoke of Mr. Chandra spoke of the Oculus, which takes you into worlds where people can have an adventure. So I'd like to just move ahead by telling you that stories don't change. Packaging changes. You're going to see on the 8th of September, and I'm going to show you something after this. I take this slide down. We have the opportunity to work on a iconic story that was created sometime in Italy, maybe 100 years ago, and 84 years ago became Walt Disney's second movie. And last weekend, we delivered that. The phrase has already been used in this room that we are a back office. The answer to that is yes, we were a back office about 10 to 15 years ago. There is nothing back about our office anymore, because what we really are today is the digital engine room to the world in animation, visual effects, and games. If there are 14 to 16 processes that go to make every frame of film, all of those 14 to 15 processes are done by hundreds and hundreds of people, both for global as well as for local content. And all that happens abroad is the conceptualization and the producer role and the financing of it, which also we intend to move to this part of the world. So I just wanted to start by saying what a great pleasure it was for hundreds of people in India to be part of a journey. And I'd like to actually show you two, because this is a conference where I'd like to dim the lights and show you the 1.5 minute trailer that got released in the last 2 days, and take my prediction. In the next 2 days, more than 2.5 million or 3.5 million people will see what it takes to make something substantially in India. So can we have the Pinocchio trailer 2 released day before yesterday, please? Lights down.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the 8th wonder of the world. The one and only Pinocchio! Jumping keepers. An almost real boy. Turn around, let me get a look at you. I will be right here when you get back. Pinocchio is running around loose without a conscience. Can you imagine the trouble he's gonna get into? Wouldn't want that on my conscience.
Everybody who's anybody wants to be a somebody.
But I want to be real.
Why on earth would you want to be real when you can be famous?
Pinocchio should have been home by now. You won't be a puppet anymore. That's for sure. Truthful. Unselfish. You will always be my real boy. Lie can really change a person, Pinocchio.
Oh, what's happening, Jiminy?
Looks like some sort of fairy magic. Kinda on the nose, if you ask me.
I think you're seeing something that is now becoming part of our life. It's what I call a combinatorial, invention where we're looking at this application of technology to art and art to technology and making it into one magical, what I would call automated machine vision system. And everything that you're going to see in these fantastic presentations at games, at XR, you got Rajat at Gametronics who's going to tell you that Dalar Mehndi outdid, was it Beyonce on a big show. Everything is happening in this combination of worlds that's all coming together. And Mr. Chandra, we are practicing on other people in order to create your avatar. Today, as we speak, Upendra, the biggest star, is in the same room where you were shooting for his movie. Everyone knows here that Kamala Hassan's Vikram was done in the same place. Varun Dhawan's movie opens in December. It's all motion captured, scanned, photogrammetry done in one of the COEs. Our dream is that all of the STPI centers and the state centers that we put up in many parts will become the hub and spoke with the National Center of Excellence. So yes, we're practicing on other stars in order to make sure that your avatar is perfect. And like Pinocchio, bring this to life so that the world can see it in any way you want. We will sign a license agreement with you before we use Avatar in the next movie. But the reason that we bring this up is when we talk about Indian IP, here is what the power of an IP is. It lasts for 100 years. It gets monetized again and again. It gets remade in the stories of the time. So, we've had the pleasure about 6 years back of making Robin Hood for the third time. And all of them were, technicolor over intervals of 40 years because it's the outlaw that does good things for poor people. And I think that's the opportunity that we want to create for our stories in all formats, be it games or visual effects or motion pictures. We are a very, very diverse people. And I wanted to make the point that while we have amazing technology panels, one of the things that I would like to say is that, technologies don't change that much. It's people that change. And technology is keeping up in order to provide them the things that they want. But I think Rajan mentioned it in his closing that everything that we see here today is getting immersive, getting gamified, and getting diversified. So every single thing has those three properties. It's not games alone. It's not visual effects alone. Visual effects, in fact, is just a part of the recipe to make great content. And we've seen in the last 2 years, two very interesting things happen. So while 70% or 75% of the revenues of AVGC come from the terrific work that we do, being the digital engine room for the international market, we've seen also that thanks to the smartphone, there is a consumer revolution in India where gamers went online. The mobile games went from 250 or 270 million viewers to 440 million viewers, exceeding the prediction made even at that time. So there's a consumer market that we have to grow. and there's an international market that we have to grow at the same time. I just want to say that while the Oculus still costs 50,000 rupees, it is for filmmakers, content creators in the room, the way to make something before it's made. So the Lion King was actually completely conceptualized inside VR glasses, using controllers, two little things like this, looking at size, shape, etc., and locking an entire movie so there's zero wastage when you actually go and produce it. And that's the opportunity now which virtual production brings in. There are fantastic panels and examples on virtual production during the course of this conference. So that's going to be a very big hallmark of what we are showcasing away. So that it's not just done in Hollywood now, it's very much a part and parcel of film and television making of all kinds in India. So finally, there's a big menu for you. As you can see, we have cooked it up. There's a guy on the right-hand top who made this program, and it's being delivered both here and all over by Swiggy. But you will see on your, I think you can scan the program, right? Where is that, Shalini? It's where can they get this? The QR codes are outside, and you will get a program on your mobile which looks like that and tells you what's happening over the next few days. I want to thank everyone that I was involved in putting this program together. Lots of people worked on it, Rajan and Ashish and many folks across our committee and industry. Just a few words about the summit, right? Why do we have a summit like this? I think, first of all, it's a celebration. I believe that there are too few occasions in the online world where we can get together and share what's happened over the last year. I'm not going to bore you with the number of awards that we have won on the global stage against a global competition. There is no single country in the world in the last 5 years that has won those many awards in advertising, in short film, in visual effects, in games, in AR, in VR, in visual effects, and in animation. There is no other country. And I can just tell you, for example, I'll give you one statistic, right? We would have won something like 24 Cannes Lions for the work done, in short films and advertising, right? One company, that's our company, the Mill itself, does something like 3,000 short films in a year. That's bigger than any second, third, and fourth person company anywhere on the planet. And that speaks to the fact this is not a place where you just send some stuff out. This is actually now very much from ideation to execution, the hub for AVGC in the world. We are, however, only 1.5% of the global AVGC market. So how do you reconcile those two things? One, unlike 15 or 20 countries where the government gives you money to create things, we do this through private enterprise. So this is the real cost and a real business in the country that I think is sustainable because it is not there through government grants and credits, right? What we need, however, is assistance in order to catapult this from the 1 to 1.5% to maybe double or triple, because the only thing that stops us from getting 2 or 3 times the orders, and there are many people here who are studio owners in the room, is talent. And to the third T that Mr. Kumar mentioned, I think it's important that if we can somehow turbocharge training, we will actually completely get there. You saw the last slide where, things like Kung Fu Panda, the Avatar 2 is coming out. It has not been done in India, but we can safely say that India will have at least 3 to 4 Oscar contenders in the same competition of Avatar when it happens in 2023, I suppose, or 2024. And so that's where we are. We are playing on that same field. Everyone refers to Avatar as a kind of gold standard when it first came out of, the big change into digital. We are also going to see a lot of this digital twinning story. It's not just in AVGC, right? Everything we talk about, people are talking about smart cities. We talk to people who are doing other things. Everyone is using, as was said earlier, imagery and simulation in order to create the next thing. And there is no better technology in the world to push that than, of course, the game engine technology. And of course, we have folks from the Epic Games and others at this event who will talk to you more about that. And finally, the least talked about is kind of comics, right? If you go to France, Across 52 weeks in the year, you will find 52 comic book festivals. They've had it for 50 years or maybe 100. And I think we're trying to revive that. We have events like the GAFX in Bangalore, where you have a whole alley, which is about 500 feet long on the way to the hall, where you have people coming in and really creating, art from scratch. And I think you will see a presentation tomorrow during the animation session, where we will have Manoj Menon, who absolutely captivated an audience in Mumbai, brought tears to their eyes because he did his presentation using a sketchbook on screen. So that's the power of comics. It is the foundational storytelling that leads to the future of animation and visual effects. My last few comments really are around AR and VR and XR. In the conversation before this, when you were sitting in the room and joining us, I think there is a huge advantage when it comes to anything technology, where India has a huge possibility not only of creating content, but of creating the tools and the technologies and the pipelines to make that happen. There are 2 technology sessions that Shaji Thomas has put together with Accenture, with all of the leading players in the field, from data center providers to tools providers and to practitioners, that will tell you what it actually takes to do something that you saw in that 1.5-minute trailer. It requires undersea cables to 5 locations in the world. It requires data that gets created in a whole day. If you look at certain companies like ours, I'll give you a very interesting anecdote. If you take the storage of all of Google in the whole world, one company that produces stuff like you see on the screen, right? We will be using something like 5 to 7% of that total storage that Google uses for every application in the world within one company. And so we made the case to the government and to Mr. Chandra and his team often that this is also an infrastructure industry. And the heavy lifting that is required by small and medium players in tier 2 and tier 3 cities is very, very important. So when we had conversations, I think Ashish has made anecdotes of how people have to bring hard disks, right, to central places in Madhya Pradesh and so on and so forth. But if we can enable them, yes, we have a fantastic mobile system. Yes, we have the best UPI system. In fact, people in games have told me that when they launch now in the United States, they find that the payment gateways are in fact quite outdated as compared to what we do here. And it's easier for them to get online games done in India as compared to many developed parts of the world. So yes, we have all that, but creating imagery is a very, very heavy lifting that requires storage and transmission and rendering and so on and so forth. And I think that's something that we can bring centrally for small and medium players to also participate in this ecosystem. This is my analogy for the AVGC task force. It is very difficult for 4 people to learn how to row together, but I must compliment all the 5 ministries. I must compliment the 7 or 8 folks that have come together. We have actually spoken every Friday morning for the last 5.5 months. Maybe we missed 1 or 2, but we've done that. And I think I've never seen such a focused mission that Mr. Chandra referred to, and we're really hoping that this will touch down and bring huge change for all of us. There are 3 things that actually is going to change this industry in a very big way. Many comments were made already in terms of 3 Ts and 3 Cs, but there are 3 things creeping into our business, and you're going to touch upon that in these 2 days as well. One of that is, I'll call it the ABC because you're using 3 letters, so I'll use ABC. A is artificial intelligence. I think there's lots happening at this moment in terms of very basic functions that are repetitive, in parts of our pipeline that are going to see how MNRA and the whole synthesis of biology and engineering will come together in the AI world, and that's going to transform our industry. And I believe we have all of the right people in this country to do that. Secondly, I've had the pleasure of having people like Kiran Mazumdar and others come in and bring people, because when they look at imagery for research, they have lots of things which are similar to what we do, of course, in the virtual world. And I think, therefore, biology and biotech and everything that we do in creatures and humans and environments needs this understanding of genomics that's actually going to become a very big part of the AVGC story. And that's the B. And the C, and finally, is crypto and Web3. And you're going to hear about that in the conversations that we have with the panel out there, because this distributed way in which we create a consensus and the security which we spoke about in building secure networks is going to become. So that's the ABC that's going to completely be very important. And I think India can actually play that role, in ahead of many smaller countries that today purport to be large in the AVGC sector. Finally, marketing. I really believe that we ran about 3 B2B sessions in Bangalore. We brought 20, 30 buyers. We had about 50, 60 people who pitched to them. And I think it's really important, since we have now said that AVGC can be a soft power for storytelling, that we bring the world to India, that we create an event in Delhi or in Goa or in Mumbai, where we bring hundreds of people in order for our small and medium sectors, our storytellers, people who write scripts, people who write, to be able to pitch to them, because going to an international event cannot cost them less than 3 to 5 lakhs of rupees, and most of them cannot afford it. And if they do go, they will be 20, 40, 60 or 80. But I do believe we need to give thousands of people the chance to tell their stories, because marketing is not about the stuff that you make, it's about the stories that we tell. Finally, I just wanted to say that we want to talk about India. And we want to make sure that we tell the stories from India. We want to pivot the digital engine room to from making only stuff that we do abroad, which we will make in bigger and better terms and get more and more revenues and jobs into the country. In fact, our sector has been recognized as a champion sector by the Ministry of Commerce and Education. Mr. Arvind Kumar talked of the number of jobs in the IT sector. We have an educated guess, Mr. Kumar, that we are short of around 200,000 people a year as far as talent is concerned. And that's for the immediate players in the field that we know of. So catapulting that to a larger degree would be something which, if we can put the training in place, that would happen. We've also suggested that the National Center of Excellence, instead of just being one more place to train students, why can't we train hundreds and hundreds of faculty members? Because they in turn will have a multiplier effect in the ecosystem. So the National Center of Excellence will not be just another center. And you talked of entrepreneurship and you talked of excellence. And I do agree with you that we sometimes call a center excellent before it starts, but we should make sure it's excellent after it starts. And of course, we will do that because we have the collective mission over here. So I'm going to end by just telling you that if you look at the last 1 year, because we want to celebrate it, we've had phenomenal movies like RRR. We've had movies like KGF 2. There are more than 6 movies that I know that are being made at a cost of more than 300 crores currently in the country. And every one of those movies will spend more than 30 to 50% on visual effects, because storytelling has to be mounted in those dimensions. And those posters will take their place alongside all the other big stories. Today, you go around India, you see HBO did a big launch in Mumbai. Actually, it's today for the Game of Thrones. That was the House of Dragon, which was done by hundreds of my colleagues. And that's the level at which we are playing this game, right? Sonic 2, which was released about a month and a half ago, is the game that became a movie and is the highest ever grossing movie of a game. It cost $315 million in its first 2 months. So that's the scale that we can aspire to. And I think as we find the tools and the technologies and use this digital engine room to create those global projects, I think we need to start creating stuff not for India, but for the world from here. And that's obviously the dream. Thank you very much for participating in this. I hope this has excited you to be here for the next 2 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated because we're going to start the next session, which is a very important session on the AVGC policy and the Draft Center of Excellence. And we have very important speakers from the government coming for that session. So please be seated. We'll start the next session at 11:30.
India has the second fastest growing digital economy in the world. By 2025, India will have 850 million smartphone users and 200 million smart TVs, collectively consuming more than 5 hours of video data per device per day. India is increasingly becoming digital, shifting rapidly to web collaboration, e-commerce, and e-payments. Emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT, robotics, and the emergence of 5G are going to extend the usage of the internet to billions of devices. India is also witnessing a shift of enterprise workloads from their captive data centers to public clouds or hosted private clouds due to the pay-as-you-use models and enormous scalability they offer. Enterprises and the government of India are now focusing more than ever before on self-reliance in their supply chains within the country, also leading to more data localization. All these trends are leading to the data explosion in India. To store and process this ever-increasing data growth and centralized cloud workloads, India needs large-scale data center parks instead of standalone data center buildings. These data center parks need to be scalable in terms of space, power, internet connectivity, support services, and a wide array of innovative value-added IT services. Yota, India's youngest managed data center service provider, is building data center parks in Navi Mumbai, Chennai, Greater Noida near New Delhi, and has upcoming projects in Mumbai, Pune, Kolkata, and Gift City in Gujarat. Yota is backed by India's leading real estate, energy, and construction major, the Hiranandani Group. What makes Yota unique is its ownership of resources, massive economies of scale, ability to tap into vast amounts of renewable power for its customers, and unmatched expertise and experience in data center design, construction, and operations. Yota NM1 is Asia's largest and the world's second largest Uptime Institute Tier 4 certified data center facility that is spread across 820,000 square feet with a capacity of 7,200 racks, 50 megawatt power, and 4 fiber paths connecting the major telecom operators and internet exchanges. It is located at Yota Data Center Park within the 600-acre Hiranandani Fortune City campus in Panvel. Yota NM1 is built to the highest standards and has a host of unique features. 15-layer physical security, highly redundant power infrastructure, an advanced automated building management system that monitors Yota NM1, a fail-safe cooling infrastructure, and a wide range of support services, including dedicated cargo material handling area, dedicated office space, transport facilities for customers, and on-site lodging arrangements for both short and long term. With our long list of certifications, which continues to grow, customers are assured of all the necessary compliance and best practices. Yota provides both hyperscale co-location for wholesale customers and fully managed Yota tech services for enterprise customers. Under co-location, we offer full floors, suites, cages, and individual racks with varying power densities and fit-out options as per customer requirements. For hyperscale customers, we offer dedicated, customized buildings on co-location model and interconnect their floors and buildings through redundant fibers. Under Yota Tech, we offer a wide variety of innovative enterprise IT solutions on a pay-as-you-use model. At Yota, we strive to deliver unmatched scalability, quality, innovation, and economies of scale by leveraging our real estate expertise, power distribution capabilities, data center design, connectivity solutions, and deep domain expertise in managed IT services. We aim to deliver value that's backed by innovation, partnerships, and trust, so that our customers get peace of mind, assurance, and above all, happiness. India has the second fastest growing digital economy in the world. By 2025, India will have 850 million smartphone users and 200 million smart TVs, collectively consuming more than 5 hours of video data per device per day. India is increasingly becoming digital, shifting rapidly to web collaboration, e-commerce, and e-payments. Emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT, robotics, and the emergence of 5G are going to extend the usage of the internet to billions of devices. India is also witnessing a shift of enterprise workloads from their captive data centers to public clouds or hosted private clouds due to the pay-as-you-use models and enormous scalability they offer. Enterprises and the government of India are now focusing more than ever before on self-reliance in their supply chains within the country, also leading to more data localization. All these trends are leading to the data explosion in India. To store and process this ever-increasing data growth and centralized cloud workloads, India needs large-scale data center parks instead of standalone data center buildings. These data center parks need to be scalable in terms of space, power, internet connectivity, support services, and a wide array of innovative value-added IT services. Yota, India's youngest managed data center service provider, is building data center parks in Navi Mumbai, Chennai, Greater Noida near New Delhi, and has upcoming projects in Mumbai, Pune, Kolkata, and Gift City in Gujarat. Yota is backed by India's leading real estate, energy, and construction major, the Hiranandani Group. What makes Yota unique is its ownership of resources, massive economies of scale, ability to tap into vast amounts of renewable power for its customers, and unmatched expertise and experience in data center design, construction, and operations. Yota NM1 is Asia's largest and the world's second largest Uptime Institute Tier 4 certified data center facility that is spread across 820,000 square feet with a capacity of 7,200 racks, 50 megawatt power, and 4 fiber paths connecting the major telecom operators and internet exchanges. It is located at Yota Data Center Park within the 600-acre Hiranandani Fortune City campus in Panvel. Yota NM1 is built to the highest standards and has a host of unique features. 15-layer physical security, highly redundant power infrastructure, an advanced automated building management system that monitors Yota NM1, a fail-safe cooling infrastructure, and a wide range of support services, including dedicated cargo material handling area, dedicated office space, transport facilities for customers, and on-site lodging arrangements for both short and long term. With our long list of certifications, which continues to grow, customers are assured of all the necessary compliance and best practices. Yota provides both hyperscale co-location for wholesale customers and fully managed Yota tech services for enterprise customers. Under co-location, we offer full floors, suites, cages, and individual racks with varying power densities and fit-out options as per customer requirements. For hyperscale customers, we offer dedicated customized buildings on co-location model and interconnect their floors and buildings through redundant fibers. Under Yota Tech, we offer a wide variety of innovative enterprise IT solutions on a pay-as-you-use model. At Yota, we strive to deliver unmatched scalability, quality, innovation, and economies of scale by leveraging our real estate expertise, power distribution capabilities, data center design, connectivity solutions, and deep domain expertise in managed IT services. We aim to deliver value that's backed by innovation, partnerships, and trust, so that our customers get peace of mind, assurance, and above all, happiness.
Request everybody to please take their seats. Everybody to please be seated. We are going to start the next session on National AVGC Center of Excellence and National AVGC Policy, Government View, Government Vision and Roadmap. All the speakers of this session are here with us. Request everybody to please take their seats. We are going to start the policy session in a few minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together in welcoming the speakers of this policy session. We have with us Ms. Neerja Shekhar, Additional Secretary and CVO, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Mr. Darpan Jain, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Subodh Sachan, Director at Startup and Innovations, Software Technology Parks of India, and Chief Innovation Officer, STPI Next. We have with us Mr. Biren Ghosh and Mr. Rajan Nawani. I request Mr. Ghosh and Mr. Nawani to please start this session on policy. Thank you.
Good morning once again, and I can see that everyone is looking a little brighter, probably after a coffee between the inauguration and the curtain raiser and this session. So we spoke this morning about the fact that today is a really important day because this is going to be somewhat of a, they say before a movie there is always a nice trailer. And so I would say that this session we have, the Honorable Neerja Shekhar, the Additional Secretary from Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. We have the Honorable Darpan Jain ji. We have Mr. Subodh from STPI. What we wanted to do in this morning is to talk about the progress that we have made in the early articulation of what Mr. Apurva Chandra referred to as the report that is being put together from the 4 subgroups that were formed under the chairmanship of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. And the 4 subgroups were, industry and innovation, gaming, skills and entrepreneurship, and education. And so that's going to be the subject for the next 3 panels. Appropriately, we start with the government that is acting on the call, the national call now, to look at this almost as a mission, where a wide stakeholder engagement between government, industry, academia, trade associations, and a wide industry consultation, a wide stakeholder consultation has continued to take place almost weekly for the last 4 to 5 months. So with these words, I will go straight into the panel that we have and leave it to the panelists to make opening comments, perhaps followed then by question and answers that the audience may have. So may I please request you, Neerja ma'am, to open with your comments on the National AVGC policy and the National AVGC Center of Excellence roadmap, so that we can share where we are on this journey.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. It's lovely seeing you all here. And hello to my fellow panelists. There's a lot of interest recently in having a policy and creating a national ecosystem which includes the states, a national level ecosystem where the AVGC sector can grow in leaps and bounds. So in this context, I can say that we have a dream. We have a dream where every Indian will be able to rise to their potential. In the Independence Day speech of the Honorable Prime Minister, he talked about India being an aspirational society, a society that demands what it wants. So we are a society, we are not just aspiring today, we are also trying to make things happen. Today, we all know that the digital component is the fastest growing component in all the segments of the media and entertainment society. In television, we know that the digital television is growing faster than linear television. Radio broadcasting, in radio, the digital versions are very strongly picking up. Digital advertising has almost taken over. Even in the print media, The print versions are becoming the primary versions of the newspapers. OTT, we all know where the content is flowing. So the digital versions are the strongest versions today. So the dream today that we can think of, we can have, is, let's say 5 years down the line, a young girl in a tier 3 city wants to pursue a career, breaking all stereotypes, wants to pursue a career in immersive technologies. Would the ecosystem allow that to happen? Will we be able to facilitate as a country? Will we be able to facilitate her aspirations? Will we allow her to be herself 5 years down the line? That's a dream, if we think of as an aspiration. And I think the way things are working with the consultations that we've had with the state governments and various ministries and departments in the government of India, we are moving towards that ecosystem. Because with 17% of world's population, we cannot be content with mere 1 or 1.5% of market share in the AVGC. There's much, much more that we deserve and we have to work for. So we are looking at national policy. We are also looking at a model state policy, which is in the making. Many states already are doing extremely well so far as supporting the AVGC sector is concerned. We've learned from them, we've discussed with them. And we want to take it up with other states who are yet to work on it, or still, or we can say where they're still working. So we're also working at a national policy, which will encompass a number of areas that you all know, and which has already, and that has already been discussed here in the first session, where the secretary has talked about an AVGC policy and how an ecosystem is will be created to ensure that young students, young and old students, why not? Everybody. We are talking of lifelong education. We are talking of skilling up. We are talking of RPL, all segments of population. We are talking of having them, making them a strong part of the AVGC ecosystem. So the policy that we are talking of, the secretary has informed you that there have been sub-task forces that are working on it. The idea is to engage with the industry and to bring them all together. We feel very enthused and inspired that the industry has been working for supporting and enabling each other with and without the support of the government in the last few years. But today we are here in a big, big way. After the Honorable Finance Minister announced the AVGC Promotion Task Force, we are here in a big way. And you're all aware of the task force that has been constituted and the sub-task forces that have been working in the areas of skilling, education, gaming, and policy. 2 of them have given their reports, 2 are about to, and the final report will be assembled and produced within a month, I hope so. So we are looking at a system, an ecosystem, where during the course of education, fortunately, we have the Right to Education Act, which enables, which ensures that students, all students up to 14 years do go to school and do have formal education. So here, this is where we expect the AVGC component to be introduced to them in the schools, in the computer labs. Let's see how we do it, but that's what the education system and the education sub-task force also talks about. that we integrate the requirements, the aspirations related to AVGC sector into the educational system. We are talking of supporting the entire system, entire sector by not only providing services, but also creating our own IPs. You all know that audiovisual services have been listed as one of the 12 champion services sectors in the country by DPIIT. And that's where we get support from, and we've been already working on it. We've announced from MIB, we've announced some incentives for the film sector, whereby who come and work with Indians or shoot their films in India or co-produce in India or even do their post-production in India will be given certain incentives. That's how we formally already announced to support the AVGC and audiovisual sector. We're also looking at a system where we can boost exports and investments. We are looking at a system where partnerships can be encouraged, government, state, industry, civil society, learners, all of them. And we are looking at developing talent in all parts of the country. And we're going to focus on the Northeast particularly. We have an STP where you're also working with them in the Northeast. And tier 2 and 3 cities will also be a priority, because we cannot let go a lot of talent that is spread out in all parts of the country by just focusing on a few areas. Through the Center of Excellence that the Secretary has spoken about, we are looking at regional centers of excellence, regional hubs as well. This is a system which we hope to come up with in the next few years after the initial Center of Excellence comes up in Mumbai. In, I think, 2, 3, 4 years down the line, we should be able to have industry-supported regional hubs, industry and state government-supported regional hubs. We are also looking at incentive structures for startups. For startups, this is an area because they are youngsters, they're learning. In fact, I learned something from a startup in my visit to Bangalore recently, when one startup said that they are creating content for children from 6 months to 6 years. I was like, 6 months? Do you know what you're saying? And well, yes, 6 months. I don't know why children of 6 months are consuming digital content. But I guess when I looked at the most watched YouTube videos in India, the number one was phonics song, ABC. One of the topmost ones, Lakdi Ki Kathi. So I guess there is a lot of consumption of content for an age group less than 6 months, 6 years as well. So lots is happening in the sector, but we are definitely looking at supporting them. We took 5 startups to Cannes Film Festival this year in May. We participated as a ministry. We participated for the first time in Annecy Animation Festival this year, and we're also going as a ministry of INB, who is spearheading the AVGC sector. We're also going to MIPCOM. We have not participated in MIPCOM earlier, but we'll be going there this year. And we hope to come up with either bring in partnerships or come up with national and global level AVGC related events supported by the government in the next few years, because the time for that has also come. We are looking at, therefore, we are also looking at promoting kids' content in a big way. Let's see what we learn from MIP Junior this time. And I think MIP kids' content is something that we all need to focus on. And with the huge consumption in the market for kids content, this is an area where good, rich content with Indian cultural sensibilities, Indian stories have to be told to the children. It's a huge, huge area that we have to work in. And during our course of discussions and deliberations with the industry, we were we have been very pleasantly working with a large number of persons in the industry who are already creating a lot of kids content. So there is a huge, huge market out there, and also original IP is being created here. Let's see how we can promote them internationally at global events and global markets. With finally, with co-production treaties and incentives that the government has announced, co-production treaties, free trade agreements with various countries, we hope that we can support this sector in a big, big way. And we look forward to the deliberations and support from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Neerja ji, for articulating the broad vision and also all of the detailed work that has been done by your ministry. I think in the future it will be the Ministry of Information and Image Making, because it is so much more than broadcasting. But yes, I think that's the direction in which we are headed. I would like to call upon Mr. Darpan Jain. I believe, sir, you have a presentation. So can we please request you to take the podium?
No. So thank you so much, Birenji, and good morning. And I'm very happy to be here. And thanks to CII for giving this opportunity. So it is a very, very short presentation. Only 13 points are there. So I'll keep it very crisp, very focused on how we look at AVGC sector as far as international trade is concerned. Since I am from Department of Commerce, so I will focus on that. Now, what are the emerging trends in the audiovisual market? So I have captured some important ones. There could be others also. But the way I see it, what is influencing the sector? The first one is digitalization. Very, very intensive digitalization is taking place in all parts of the value chain, whether you take it production, whether you take it transmission, whether you take it consumption. So you are seeing now the segments, the way market share was earlier in the audiovisual sector, it has now been overtaken by digital segments. They are now leading as far as market share of audiovisual services is concerned. So I think this is one big trend which is expected to continue for future also. So all our services, audiovisual services which we are thinking, I think the digital component is very important. The second very, very important we all keep on talking about is data. Now, this sector, I think, is one which is very, very heavily affected by or is leveraging data in making tailor-made content available to the consumer. The consumer preferences are getting captured by platforms, and those platforms are then again either using it for advertising or they are again using it for delivering more content. So going forward, I see further customization of audiovisual content as per the preference of the consumer. So this is something which is very different from olden days when we used to have one channel coming or two channels coming and people didn't have option. Now you have a lot of option, and one of the important reason why it has emerged is that your preferences are getting captured in the way you are sharing your data, in the way data is being captured by platforms. The third and very, very important, which I think all our colleagues in the industry must be looking at very, very carefully, is the way content is being delivered. So no longer it is being delivered only through getting it transmitted through, let us say, satellite or through antennas. It is coming through optic fiber, and also the aggregators are delivering a lot of audiovisual content. Now, this is something which was not there earlier. The social media channels, the YouTube, the Facebook, so a lot of audiovisual content is getting delivered from there. Now, these channels of distribution have their own characteristics. They have their network effect. So if there are more consumers on that network, it further leads to growth of that network. Now, do we have such channels which are homegrown, which will enable us to deliver our content also in a manner in which we want to deliver, which will benefit our industry? So I think this is one thing on which we need to focus on. Do we have access to channels for distributing our content? Regulations. World over, we are seeing, even in developed countries, we are seeing a lot of changes in regulations. The policy is evolving. We are seeing, you must have read about European Union. European Union has been at the forefront of, coming out with regulations. You would have seen the Digital Services Act. You would have seen about the legislations which are contemplated in US. Again, what are these regulations trying to regulate? These regulations are trying to regulate, one, content. What kind of content is coming to the consumer? India also came out with a regulation on how a content is to be regulated. Second thing, what they are trying to regulate, they are trying to regulate the platforms. Whether platforms should be monopolistic, whether they have any anti-competitive feature to them. So these are the items which the regulations are trying to regulate and trying to ensure that there is a level playing field. The startups as well as the big companies, the SMEs as well as the big players, they are able to enter the market, compete in the market. So the regulations are going, and some of the sectors are completely new. Gaming, online gaming. I think one of the biggest sector which is in need of regulation is online gaming. About content. Now we are seeing a lot of globalization of content as well as a lot of localization of content. So I think this is a trend which is going to continue, and we should also, keep ourselves open to that as to whether our content is hyper local and whether it is also global. And it is not only AV sector, we are seeing it across market segments. We are seeing it in products also. We are seeing e-commerce becoming both global as well as hyper local. Interactive as well as participative segments of the AV sector, they are overtaking the traditional ones, which were, I would say, unilateral kind of segments in which there was only one-way communication of content. So more and more going forward, there would be the involvement of consumer in the way content is consumed. Then last point which I want to make in this, for our players, international market is a very, very big market, which is untapped at present. My estimate is it is a more than 2 trillion market which is there. 2 trillion. The size of AVGC sector in India is said to be around 30 billion. Now you can compare what is 2 trillion and what is 30 billion. What is the gap we have? What kind of potential we have? So this is a big market which is open, untapped, which we can use. Now, what can be done for exports? So I'm again focusing on export. Export orientation is very, very essential in all your work, in the way we are looking at market. So my request is keep yourself open to the markets around you, other countries, neighboring countries, countries with which we have agreements, countries which have good potential. And that is what we have requested in the policy also, that it needs to have very, very strong focus on exports. For that, we require high standard regulation for online gaming. I think gaming will overtake all segments of AV sector. It is already, I think, number 2 or number 3, and it is growing at the fastest rate. So I think gaming is very important. We need to ensure that our players, they have certainty of the policy regime. They have predictability of the policy regime so that investment can come in. They know if they invest their money, then they can pursue a particular path. Third, and the most important, in which we are directly engaged, is getting the market access in other countries. Now, what we are trying to do in all our free trade agreements, we have recently signed trade agreements with UAE, with Australia. What we have done there, we have tried to ensure that our service suppliers from the audiovisual sector, they get access in that market, and that access is certain. It is not that access is there today and gone tomorrow. It is certain for all times to come, till the time that treaty survives, and the treaty is a perpetual treaty. So that is what we are trying to aim for. In all markets where we are signing our free trade agreements, we are trying to get access, certain access, predictable access for our service suppliers. We have done for UAE, we have done for Australia. It has been done in the past for Korea, Singapore, Japan. My request is, if there are issues in these markets, if there are challenges in these markets, please let us know. We will try and resolve those issues, because we have, after a lot of effort, we have tried and gained this kind of a policy certainty for our service suppliers. And we are engaged in discussions with other countries as well. We are engaged with UK, we are engaged with European Union, we are engaged with Canada. So my request is, these markets also, if there are some suggestions, we would be very happy to work on that. Ma'am already made the point, utilize our co-production agreements. We already have more than 15 co-production treaties. How can we leverage those treaties? How can we collaborate with international studios, with players from other countries, and produce content which is not only for our market, but also for their market? So I think there is a lot to be done on leveraging our co-production treaties. The fifth point is market intelligence. I think for our SMEs, for our startups, we need to have a mechanism of getting them market intelligence so that they come to know where are the opportunities. It is very difficult to otherwise, I think, search for opportunities or establish your credentials. I think there is a need for market intelligence mechanisms so that they get to know of these opportunities. And also of promotion. Madam already made the point on promotion, need to have more buyer sellers meet, need to have more participation in events abroad, so that our service suppliers can display their skills, can show as to what they have in their repertoire. And the last point which I would like to make is need for robust data. I think what we are lacking at present, we have data from so many different sources, we have data, but I'm not sure how robust is that data. Do we have data on international trade and audiovisual services? We have, but at a very macro level. Do you know how much of trade in audiovisual services you are doing with USA or with UK or with Canada? No, it is not there in public domain. Do we know which sector is doing? How much is gaming doing? How much is films doing? We don't know. So unless and until we know, how will we make good policies, good interventions? So I think it is very, very critical to have mechanisms, to have robust data so that we can build a policy which can really support our service suppliers. So these are the important points I just wanted to highlight. And there are other points also, but for the sake of brevity, I kept the important ones. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Darpanji, for really outlining, the entire place so proactively and addressing every point, that I think is of importance to the group here. And then before I move on, I just want to kind of take a minute for us to kind of pause, to kind of really put together the reason why we're doing this session. It's really, as you can see, right from when Neerjaji talked about the aspiration of the Yuva and the Nari Shakti being unlocked, with your example, the aspiration lined with the Prime Minister's vision, from the Ministry of Information Broadcasting to our goal of $1 trillion digital economy, and how Ministry of Commerce is increasing the access to other markets and really looking at what industry can do to bring the right data points so that we can constructively build something right for our country. I think is the power of a platform like this. How do we all really sit together, discuss, debate, understand what are the areas that we can address, as we move forward? So I just wanted to use this a moment to kind of talk a little bit about that. But as we move on, I want to invite Subodh Sachanji, who is the director of the Startup and Innovation STPI and the Chief Innovation Officer for STPI Next, because that's where the future gets unlocked over the next 25 years. So over to you, Subodh.
Thank you, Mr. Rajan. It's a privilege to be on the platform. Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, Dr. Panji and Birenji. Thank you for inviting on this very, important platform where this deliberation is happening. Well, within STPI, which is an autonomous society under Ministry of Electronics and IT, we have been partners to the growth of the IT industry from last at least 3 decades or so. I think 35 years of IT journey in the country. STPI has been facilitating their same role. Today, if we see IT industry, as one of the biggest industry in terms of not just the GDP contribution, but also in terms of the exports, which is stood around $227 billion in the last financial year, or in terms of the skilled manpower, which we we're very proud of, and I think all of us, including this generation of mine, is all the product of the same IT industry. The aspirations which were probably there in the youth at that point in time in the early 2000s, I think those were met by the industry. And while I'm talking about these numbers, it is important to understand that what is the next part of what, the IT industry and where the growth happens. And that's where around 3 years back, within STPI, we took a deliberative step in terms of what are the aspirations, where is it the industry should go into, and what are the trends within the emerging technology areas. And one of the important steps which we took 3 years back, ma'am, was primarily in terms of setting up centers of entrepreneurship, which became the vehicle for growth of the startup ecosystem in the tech space, and I think from a pan-India perspective within STPI. Today, when almost the startup journey, which kind of got a kick started and got an acceleration almost 7-8 years back, in STPI and Ministry of Electronics IT took this step in terms of supporting, creating an infrastructure to support the emerging technology startups across India. Today, when we are talking about 20 plus centers of entrepreneurship, I'm happy to say that 4 of them are focused in this sector of animation, video, VFX, gaming, right? And I'm also happy to share a stage with Birenji, because industry has been a great collaborator in our centers of entrepreneurship. Birenji is already as a chief mentor, not just heading our centers of entrepreneurship in a where industry is playing a very critical role, but also guiding us and the startups together. I can also see in the audience people from our Hyderabad Imaging Center of Entrepreneurship. Mike is sitting there. So I think it's important to see that there is industry and government comes together when we want to create, when we, ma'am talk about dream. And I think when we talk about aspirations, when we talk about the visions, when we talk about the missions, it's important that industry and government comes together. I think today we are in the mission mode. Today, if we STPI and MIT, within this particular initiative, which is called a Center of Entrepreneurship, and also another initiative called Next Generation Incubation Scheme, which is focused to support startup in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. As ma'am was saying, the aspiration of youth and aspiration of our country has to be met, not just by what we see in the tier 1 cities, but also what we do in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. I'm happy to say that out of 500 plus startups which are actively supported, I mean, this is the number which is actively supported by our ecosystem today, 48% of them are coming from tier 2 and tier 3 cities, right? And this is why the reason I'm putting this number, because when we talk about vibrancy being seen here while sitting in Delhi, we see the vibrancy getting validated by these numbers when startups are coming and taking forward, coming forward and taking, various help from the government or support from the government. Just not the tier 2 and tier 3 city in terms of numbers, but also the participation of Nari Shakti, which ma'am just said. In fact, out of our portfolio of startups, ma'am, 28% of them are women-led, and which is again, because we wanted to have a clear focus of giving a platform for women entrepreneurship. It's just not because the government had an initiative and government wanted to do that, but it's also because there are women entrepreneurs who are coming forward and take this journey forward in terms of startup ecosystem. The reason why, want to put these numbers, because when we create an ecosystem of what we look forward in terms of startup activities, we focused on various sectors, and I'm happy to say, AVGC sector is one of the important pillars for us. The 4 centers which I talked about, one in Hyderabad, but 2 of them in the Northeast, because we have seen this Northeast has a great aspiration within this sector of AVGC, whether you break down to the animations, whether you break down to, movie creation. I think there's a great aspiration in Northeast, and that's why we have set up 2 centers there. What is required next? I think while we do a content story, while we create tools and technologies, but now within our, aspirations, we have one clear agenda in mind, that how do we create platform story from coming out of India? How do we create better immersive experience in terms of platforms, and how these platforms can be supported, right? And I think, when we move forward from content story, it is also important for the platforms to emerge. The platforms where the deep tech can play a great role, because AVG sector as it is, and I think it's a sunshine sector. And I think I remember very well when we sat in Summit FX in the first edition with Birenji, it was, seen as a sunshine sector, and today we witness the sunshine sector. But where do we see the story coming forward and going for, going from here? For that to happen, the startups and the industry has to come forward. Today, India is one of the biggest markets from the content perspective. It's the biggest market from the, let's say, just certain parameters, like if you talk about just the app downloads, right? The gaming sector, which Darpanji talked about, right? Today, we are one of the top 5 markets. When we are seeing ourselves and they're witnessing ourselves as one of the biggest markets, it is important that we are also the creators for the tools, technologies, platforms, and solutions. And that's when the whole journey from IT industry to the service industry, the product industry, and the product nation will really happen. So I'm happy to see, and I think these platforms help us to get real feedback from what industry is looking forward to, what young entrepreneurs are looking forward to, and we collaborate and weave together various initiatives within the government for the same. So looking forward to further interaction in the session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Subodhji, for all those comments. And really, knowing that your mission mode action is now really happening in tier 2, tier 3 cities, it's really heartening to know that, you said nearly half of the startups being created are coming, because that is truly the future of Bharat. And we see that, in many capacities. CII is, of course, championed the gaming industry. As I'm the president of the Indian Digital Gaming Society. And we are seeing gaming extending to esports, where people will compete to get a medal for our country, and what games are they going to come? And like other champions, it's also going to come from tier 2, tier 3 cities. And probably in sports like electronic cricket and others, which are more India-led to the world rather than, the other way around. So I think very exciting times, and thank you for highlighting that. And I think we're going to use this as an opportunity to open up to the audience. Me and my co-moderator, Birena, trying to see how we can get a maximum input in this. So maybe what we'll do is we'll take 3 questions, and if you can just be really brief, take your name and, maybe what the question is, and, who would you like to address it to? And then we'll take 3 questions and then maybe do 2 rounds of that here. Please. Can someone get a mic there?
My name is Parthapatim Das, and as this is a very constructive interaction going on, I'd like to place my submission as a question over here. There has been reference of Northeast thrice in the last session and even in this session. Now, when we're talking about STPI touch points in Northeast, 2 of them over there, we have to appreciate what's the current connectivity level in terms of basic connectivity in Northeast. That's really a challenge point today. I'm not talking about just Assam. We have to look beyond Assam, which is plains, and not the capitals of the hilly states. There are 8 states. Leaving Assam, 7 states are hill states. And we're talking about just the capital city. Ma'am referred about, this to be included in the school curriculum. Now, if we talk about schools in the hill states, we have to understand and appreciate what the conditions are if the basic connectivity is not there. So what's your view on that? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take two more. Yeah, please, at the back. There. Yeah, please. Go ahead.
My name is Anuj Kakar. I'm from Aptech. My question really is to Darpanji. Darpanji, just the way we talk about tier 2, tier 3 cities in India, likewise, if I talk about the tier 2, tier 3 countries in the world, ASEAN as a market is a very, very important market for us to look at. And Vietnam in particular, and all the other countries involved, Malaysia, Philippines, and the rest of them. I think it offers hidden potential, which has yet not been discovered as much by the rest of the world, and anything that your ministry can do to further that cause would go a long way in establishing us early in those markets. Any work that the ministry is doing around those lines in the ASEAN markets. And also, if you can touch on the African markets also.
Thank you. Ashish?
My name is Ashish Kulkarni. My question is to Darpan sir. In fact, some of the critical aspects that we have been discussing actually revolves around how do we support the Indian IP, because the long-term game in our industry, because of the shelf life of animation content, is phenomenally longer than any live action content, and the repurpose happens very often because there are offshoots like the gaming and experiential entertainment to licensing, merchandising, and all. Right now, the support for the Indian IP itself is a very weak support, although emphasis is on services, and we all started with services, but we have grown up the value chain, and today we can offer services end to end and also create Indian content and Indian character brands which can go global. There are certain suggestions we have done, but one of the key things that we would like an intervention from Finance Ministry and your ministry is to recognize our IPs to be good for collaterals, and the valuation of these IPs needs to really see that they are considered to be as a collateral, because this is something which is going to support the industry in a very big way. And how do we kind of build a mechanism and a forward-looking mechanism? Of course, it's a long rope, but somewhere beginning has to be done, and we have been having a lot of comfort discussing this openly with you, and this is one of the bigger concerns that we have. So how can we actually support the Indian IP ecosystem and exports of Indian IP to the global audience?
Thanks, Ashish. Maybe Neeraj, you'd like to answer the Northeast and any other comments, and then maybe we'll move to that.
Yes. Thank you for this. Is it okay? Thank you for this very pertinent question on Northeast, because when we say it's a commitment to reach out and cover all parts of the country, we actually mean all parts of the country and all segments of population. So we are talking about creating an ecosystem where we can reach out. We are talking of what I was talking of was the product of that ecosystem. But before that, an infrastructure has to be created where we are talking of connecting all villages. You know about BharatNet, the entire network of OFC connecting all the cities, all the villages in the country. This is a huge network that is being created. So all these things lead to one another. We talk of not only satellite connectivity, but also the ground connectivity. So we have, so once the connectivity is there, then education is something which will go on parallel. One will lead to another and one will feed the other. And then further, once it's a part of the education, see how it will be a part of the education is we are waiting for just wait for the final report of the policy that we'll be coming out with. Once it is there, it will be very clear how the school system and the education and skilling system will be integrated into the how the ecosystem will be created, but it will be one part. Then the infrastructure part, I'll also give it over to Mr. Sachin for talking about how STPIs are supporting the infrastructure there.
Thank you, ma'am. And let me just add on to, on this part. When we look into supporting industry, because I'll talk about more from the industry support within the Northeast, STPI has been at the forefront, ma'am, in terms of creating the right infrastructure, which included the, having a provision for, the industry create the bandwidth, the industry create the support in terms of the robustness of, connectivity, right? And STPI has been doing the same. In particularly, when we talk about the startup ecosystem today in Northeast, all 8 capital cities. Yes, I think we have focused on the capital cities right now because, it's also important to have the right numbers in place, do certain activities where there is a traction enough first and then spread out, right? So we have done 8 centers of entrepreneurship in each of the capital city in Northeast. And these centers of entrepreneurship, when we create the infrastructure, which provides the modern incubation infrastructure, which is inbuilt with complete, I think from the fact that availability of connectivity, the best place to sit and work, right? I think we are doing that. So we have already done 1,000-seater of such incubation facility, which is world class. And I think I invite each of you to come and visit our centers in Northeast. And I stand corrected, as Birenji said, we have opened 3 centers focused in this space, in the space of AVGC. One which is in the graphic design as well in Kohima. So I think 3 centers in Northeast are focused in this space, and remaining are focused on other spaces as well. So this is what we are trying to do within the sector, and I think each department within the government is working to ensure the gaps are fulfilled. I think that's the message which I want to say. When STPI looks into creating an infrastructure for industry, infrastructure for the startups, we are focused to ensure that there is whatever the gaps are there, we meet through the government intervention, through the investment which is done by the government to ensure the industry takes shape, startup ecosystem takes shapes there. And I'm sure the same is being done with the rest of the departments as well.
Let me just add that a film training institute is also coming up in Itanagar, Arunachal Pradesh, which is almost complete, should be, because of the monsoons there, it takes a little longer to finally do the completion. But in a few months, maybe by next year, it should be complete. And all the courses have started in a temporary campus. But once it is fully functional next year, towards the end of next year, we are looking at a number of courses, including animation and VFX courses also there. So that will add to the ecosystem in the region.
As you can see, Northeast is being discussed a lot, and even earlier in this week, CII mobilized private industry around the visit of the finance minister who was there. I was part of that discussion, and I must say that there is tremendous interest in both building infrastructure services around that. So I think we are all, as I mentioned earlier, aligned on the way we can make this happen. So Darpanji, over for you to the other question.
So as far as ASEAN and African markets are concerned, I think both are important markets. And with ASEAN, we already have a trade agreement. We have an agreement on trade and services with them, which we constantly review also. And we have a mechanism of interacting with ASEAN countries also. So that is one. Second, we also undertake a lot of promotion activities as a part of market access initiative of Department of Commerce. We conduct number of programs in which we have these B2B matchmaking sessions so that our service suppliers are able to interact with the importers there. So I think these need to be leveraged, and both the markets, I completely agree with you. These are also important markets which we should look at. And we would be very happy to receive any suggestions if the industry has on how we can make it more focused, more country specific. So we would be very happy to receive that. On Ashishji, your point on IP, yes, 100% I agree with you. IP protection and enforcement is something which is a basic prerequisite to move up the value chain. We are all talking about startups. Sachanji mentioned about the good job which is being done on incubation. Number of state governments have policy to promote startups in AV sector. How will startups grow unless and until they don't get protection for the IPs which they create? So yes, I completely agree with you that we need to see to it that that IP becomes an asset for them and they are able to leverage that. So let us work on it. Let us interact with the concerned ministry also and banks also as to what issues they have. Why are they not able to kind of recognize it? It is a difficult thing. It's an intangible thing. You know, I mean, how much should I value it? It's like goodwill. How much I should value Ashish goodwill, or what is the commercial potential of a IP? I think this is an important area which we need to focus on, and I think we should work on it. So happy to work with the industry on that. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think you've got a glimpse of 2022, because for 10 to 15 years, we have been approaching and advocating what we should be doing to the government. But if I was to take the last 1 or 2 years, I regularly, speaking for many of us in this room, we get 5 to 10 messages to participate in various things that the government wants us to do. So there is a very pleasant reversal of roles that has taken place, where we are being tasked to perform, a collaborative duty on task forces. We have been invited to participate in services exports meetings. The minister himself and the secretary himself is having a couple of meetings this week to look at the PAN services story. I think it's day after tomorrow. And there are many requests on that front. Subhojji, they have something called Octane. So Octa is 8 for the 8 states and NE is Northeast. So even the name is very demonstrative of the intention there. And there's government sidecar funds that are available for this. The bigger problem than connectivity sometimes is just to help the young people as to how to articulate their thought, even to frame the proposal to get the funding. And we were speaking, Ashish and I, earlier, that maybe we should have some boot camps in helping them to actually articulate those thoughts and how do you make a proposal for funding. But across this panel, I think you've seen the new winds of change, where we are looking at the fact that the government now has opened its doors and in fact is asking all of the industry in the academics and in other fields to do this. To the couple of questions that got asked, I think it's important that next 3 panels will answer many of them, because you will be completely surprised, like never before, at the thought that has gone in to, for example, the framing of the education recommendations for the subgroup. It will be a revelation to every single person in this room. You will be surprised to hear what has been put together on the front of the terms of reference that was created for the skills subgroup. And those are the sessions that are coming up. There's industry next, where we'll kind of springboard just into that conversation. But in particular, education and skills is going to really be a game changer. And we're looking forward to that collective vision being implemented as the report gets finalized on the way to the policy. So can I ask you to give a very big round of applause to our esteemed guests from the government? Thank you. Yes.
We are going to immediately start with the next session, which is the industry view of AVGC policy and the AVGC Center of Excellence. Biren and Rajan are already there on the stage. I invite Mr. Ashish Kulkarni, founder and CEO of Punaryug Art Vision and Screen Yug Creations, Mr. A.R. Sesha Prasad, head of production at DNAG, and Mr. Chaitanya Chinchlika, vice president and business head of Whistling Woods International, to please come on the dais for this next session, which is the industry view of AVGC policy and the Center of Excellence. Request everybody to please remain seated. We are starting the next session immediately. Biren request you to please take over the
In
session.
the movie business, they would say, "Ye Biren to bahut footage kha raha hai." Right? There's a lot of film is being consumed, but I will actually try and make sure that you hear some of the most eminent voices from the industry.
एक इंडस्ट्री का एक और व्यू है, बीरेन तेरे को नीचे नहीं आने देंगे.
Thank you very much. The conversation that we wanted to have with you is basically to get a view. We have a very esteemed panel. On my extreme left is Chaitanya, who is a mover and shaker of everything that you can look at as thought leadership in education. He's often seen whistling in the woods, but here he is far away in a big city to continue to make some melody happen. On my left, Ashish needs no introduction. He has single-handedly been like the Hercules holding up the AVGC industry for many, many years. On my right is Rajan, who is going to finally bring sense and sensibility to the conversations around games, which continue to swirl around many topics. And I think the newness of games is something which hopefully we will put to rest by making sure that the understanding of the various places and spaces can create a future that everyone has talked about as one of the most highly turbo powered part of the AVGC sector. On my extreme right is Shesha, who is a builder. He has built one of the first giant visual effects companies in the country, and has also been a colleague for a brief while, for a year or two, and in more recent times has been the spearhead for Double Negative, which has also enhanced India's position in the visual effects space, not as some people refer to it as for back-end services, but to be the digital engine room. We are the digital engine room for the world, doing everything from the beginning to the end. So I'm going to start by getting Ashish to kick off the conversation and pass it around to the panel members. We want to leave time for questions and answers, because there are many things that have been said in the morning, which I think we are very close to as a group. But maybe if we can bring that to you, and then we are probably going to even look at a combination of the education and the skills panels thereafter, which is really going to be the focus for the morning. So we will leave, if I may request the panel to leave the education and the skilling part to the next session and concentrate on what do we think is the industry's ask around the table. So Ashish, over to you.
Thanks, Biren. In fact, just to bring your attention, we are slightly over 2 decades right now, and whatever has happened in the last 2 decades to the industry, it grew from animation and comics as an industry into visual effects, into gaming, and now we have added XR to the whole ecosystem, and we are in a process of adding metaverse to the as an umbrella to many things that are going to happen in this world in the future. But as we grow the industry grounds up, whether we also had a conducive support from the states and the center as a policy was a big question mark. And the issue was that we co-productions. They had co-production treaties. They had public broadcast system, and they also had co-production. They could actually officially become a co-producer of content. And as a result, most of the Indian studios ended up doing co-production irrespective of co-production treaty. And it was considered outside TD, so we were a weaker partner to start with. And many times, many countries didn't even speak to us because we were not having a co-production treaty with them. So today, the onus was on the industry to push the content creation. And because we were weaker partner, ended up and became partner and greenlit the foreign content as a co-production subject, whereas original Indian content as a co-production subject has never. So with this policy intervention, we believe that we will be a level playing field to really do, and our studios and the creators would be more will go with a strength on their side and greenlight Indian idea to become a co-production idea. AVGC ecosystem, we create a digital art and we were a framework. At the end of the day, this has to happen somewhere in the state. The decision has to be the state. Make sure we also make policy which supports the between the national policy. Language has its own ecosystem, television programs, and that's why we have utilized to further, into or dovetail into the animation, visual effects, gaming, because no show or no film today, even if it's a wedding film or a birthday film, cannot be completed with a little bit of animation and visual effects. So the post-production deeply imbibed into whole of our policy making, and we would like to make sure that we support all forms of storytelling through the AVGC XR policy, and we are making some bit of difference to enhance the quality of a frame that enabling that were. We had major issues in terms of visual effects because there are some states who were giving some incentives to visual effects. The producer was uh, Indian public broadcaster, which is Doordarshan, because as of now, for original content creation, we are all fully dependent on the pay TV channels and their commissioning and maybe OTT commissioning. And we are subject to the rating system by BARC. And the rating system shows that the Indian content does extremely well in terms of rating, and that's why they were commissioning. But the rates of producing Indian content have not changed for the last 18 years, ever since it's got started getting created. And then the producers lose all the rights under the sun when they sell the content to these channels. And how do we actually create, again, a mechanism whereby the original producers are able to retain some of the rights with them is by creating a public broadcaster in parallel, so that you have a public broadcasting system. A full mechanism has been created to do that, which is a part of our suggestion. And we have several incentive programs, plus ask in terms of tax. I would not spend too much time on the gaming because Rajan is here and Rajan can explain your gaming part very well. They are a much complex industry than what we are. So I think that's something that we would like Rajan to light on. But there are quite a few more points than what I have first stated. But I'll stop here because I would like the others to come in, and then we can actually make it more interactive so that we can find right solutions and we can hear what's there in your mind as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Ashish, for that very comprehensive explanation of, first of all, the journey and also the state of play where we are. And I think many of these asks, fortunately for us, are now at least incorporated in the draft of what we're putting together. May I come to you, Shesha, just to give a state of play with regard to the visual effects industry, which I think has got dimensions both of significant international work, but we're also seeing that the content, local content in movies and television, in visual effects, especially with virtual production and everything else, is catapulting at a very great rate. So as a person who's seen this, right from the beginning of the international services, what are the remaining asks in front of us? How do we make sure that small, medium, and large companies can create that ecosystem that we talked about in the opening? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Biren. Thank you, Biren, for having me here. It's like old times. Been with several panels with Ashish and Biren over the last 20 years, I guess. I think it, like you said, the journey from just doing labor-intensive work 20 years back to where we are as a VFX industry, as a global services business. India is no longer an option, but it's a necessity for any global work that is happening on the VFX business. Some form or shape, some portion of the work of any global product is probably done in India. Okay, that's a tremendous achievement on where we've reached in the last 17 years. Maybe the companies that you have worked with and I have worked with have legitimized the business, and it's moved on the value chain from where we were in doing labor-intensive work to doing high-end, end work for huge Hollywood blockbusters, including name any of the top 10 blockbusters in the world, and India would have contributed in some form or shape, and and that's a tremendous achievement from what we have done in the last 10-15 years. Now, I think there's also space and that's gotten created for a lot of visual effects powerhouses and the Hollywood and the OTT platform consumers to not content creators to have some form being done of India for the labor intensive. So it's created a lot of opportunities for mid-size and small-size companies to also participate, seeing the success of or the track record of various other international players coming into the business and getting down there. I think a lot of the other traditional visual effects companies who've been in the business for a longer time are also looking for opportunities to become grow up the value chain and become co-producers in trying to make things successful. Ours is a different story. Our CEO the owner of our company is Indian. We've done the reverse engineering of the Indian company going and acquiring international companies. And in the last, we won 6 Oscars in the last 8 years for visual effects, and that's a tremendous achievement. And which I guess, which also plays into the Made in India story, I guess. And what this allowed us to do, with the DNA being Indian, we are also starting to co-produce a lot of movies. In fact, we co-producing, we're moving up the value chain. The story is growing for a lot of other small players also in similar lines, where they're getting opportunities. I'll finish up our story where we actually co-produced a movie, Brahmastra, which is coming up in the next 1 or 2 weeks. And I guess that's a huge VFX blockbuster industry. And similarly, this is opening a lot of opportunities for those boutique stores, mid and small size, to partner with a lot of other content creators to make sure that they're also part of the storytelling process. I'll be very interested to know, like what Ashish spoke about, the incentives coming back to the VFX companies and the policy framework that are being set up, because that's going to be key. Because a lot of times, like he said, most of the mid-size and the smaller size companies were stuck in the services thing, and they were not being incentivized, or they were not seeing the profits of the story. Having said, the service side of the business is booming. I see there's nothing stopping India from growing to a greater extent. And obviously, partnerships on the co-production fronts and doing a lot more with the content creators to go up the value chain is something that is an opportunity. A lot of opportunities will be there. Making smart decisions in either taking part as partners, or have strong stories to take in that whole process is something that everybody should look forward to. But I'd be very keen to know what the opportunities that the new policies are going to come. But I see a lot of traction. What used to happen, what used to be spoken about, like Ashish said, and growth of it. I'm sure that's a part of a next discussion that's coming up. But I think that's the only, more and more global players are coming in India. There are 4 or 5 of the top international VFX companies here. Expect another 3, 4 in the next 6 months to 1 year. Everybody who's there, who's worth their salt, is going to be in India. There's no choice. That's a given. It's already happened. And I guess we come along with it. And I guess VFX as a services business has boomed, but there's a lot more upside. The only impediment is availability of talent, and and trying to work out more solutions to keep the talent happy.
Thank you very much for articulating how India is now the secret sauce in the visual effects production of both international as well as local output. I'm going to come to you, Chaitanya. If you could put yourself in the shoes of the industry, and you've been a very active ingredient in helping to build the grassroots level of talent. You could also perhaps talk about the fact that you are not preparing anyone to do back-end work at Whistling Woods. So, in the room, you've got Anuj here, from Aptech. We've got Srini here. We've got a lot of people that have, Arul, who's been both participating in industry as well as in training for several years now. Where are we on the cusp of what's going to happen with the policy, and how does innovation actually be stirred up by the kind of thing that industry and academia together are looking at?
Thank you, Biren. Hello for everybody. So we started from industry. Our chairman, founder, the vision comes from industry. For 15, 20 years before he thought of Whistling Woods, he was known as the person who would launch new faces, and not just actors, but editors, DOPs, production designers, etc., etc., music directors. Also, as somebody who used technology as the sharp end of the stick to get people back into theaters. Yeah, I mean, chairman and founder of Whistling Woods is Mr. Subhash Ghai. Whether it is the six-track stereophonic sound and the widescreen format, which was used for Karma to get people back into theaters after the whole VCR thing. They have no idea what a VCR is, by the way. So anyway, so that's where we've come from. That's where a lot of the vision of the school comes from, of how does an institution become one that continuously creates the next generation of the industry. That's, I mean, if you want to look at it in one line, that's what we do. We continuously create the next generation. And in order to do that, we have to be ahead of the curve, because a student that joins Whistling Woods this year will graduate 3 years from now or 4 years from now. I need to be 3 or 4 years out now in my thinking, in my academic structure, in my pedagogy, so that I'm able to educate them today. And that's really what we look at. So when we started to set up, and I think one of the good things was that all of us who were part of the ecosystem came very, very so, filmmaker, writer, by profession, I'm a chartered in our media and entertainment for 6 months. Actually do that constantly, and it's not like you're taking a break from work. It is part of your work. It will help you to do things that you've been doing all this while better. And I mean, just yesterday I had a conversation with somebody for an example of that, and it's not exactly linked to the animation industry, but it's a good example. So about 12 to 15 years ago, one of the most sought after jobs in the film industry was a helicam operator, because they would get paid upwards of 75,000 rupees a day. Today that job doesn't exist. It's not like it's there and it's lowly paid. It just doesn't exist because drones have replaced it. Now, if that helicam operator or whoever was doing that hadn't upgraded his or her skill sets or hadn't looked at something. So the point is that you have to build continuous learning, continuous education into the culture of both the individual and the company, and most importantly, the family and society. Because that's where most of the angular tanas come from, right? That you're going back to school, what the hell is going on? So I think these are the 4 or 5 broad thoughts I had, and we will talk about the actual specific structure of the education of what we're doing in education and skilling in more detail as Neeraj joins us. Hi, Neeraj. So yeah, back to you, Biren.
We are joined by Neeraj. Finally, the connectivity is all there, and Neeraj would have been here in person, but as you know, he's the managing director of Hungama Digital. And Neeraj, the conversation so far has been, how we can stir a greater innovation and our contribution to one of the three panels today. One is this one on industry. The next 2 are on skills and on education. And this is really to kind of create a broader engagement for things that we have been cloistered around Zoom calls and personal meetings in order to try and influence the final report that hopefully will also become the policy. So I'll start with you, and then I'm going to hand over to Rajan, because you are broadly involved in a larger area now, also participating in the game subgroup. So I will request you to address this room full of lovely people. We would love to have had you here in person, but here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Neeraj Roy. Neeraj, you're on mute. The most famous word in the last 2 years.
Hi, good afternoon, Biren, Ashish, Chaitanya, Rajan, Shesh. First of all, thank you for this, and a very good afternoon to all the audience members. I would have loved to be here, was scheduled to be traveling and be in Delhi with all of you folks, but unfortunately, on account of a personal issue, had to cancel. I think, Biren, you'll agree that the last four and a half months of all of us, 7 of us kind of working together, and then a broader extended group in trying to give shape to this extremely forward-thinking initiative which the government has taken, has been a very, very enriching process for all of us. It's obviously the labor of love of a lot of you folks sitting on the dais right now, led by Ashish and yourself, who've been champions of AVGC for the longest time. My sort of comments here would really be to try and inspire a certain kind of thinking, which is also, I believe, a manner in which the government has approached it, because as we are aware, this is intersection happening across 5-6 different ministries, from METI to INB to skill development to HRD, is really to try and put the consumer at the center of this all. When we look at what we describe as AVGC, and as Ashish mentioned, XR and the metaverse as elements of this in its own way, I think what industry has consistently done is almost like catch up to where the consumer is going. And the consumer has chosen to move from device to device, platform to platform, screen to screen, as technology has facilitated that, as technology has enabled it, and as what we like to call now as technology has disrupted it. And I feel that every time we put the consumer at the center, what emerges is something a little more, sort of thought-provoking. And I think we are at the cusp of something very, very significant here. We are sort of all examining this with the prism of content and communities and audiences and time spent. But I would like to perhaps say that, Biren, you and I have been on sessions like this for the last 1.5, 2 decades, and we've used a term which we've used and more often than used, abused, which is called convergence. It's all kind of come alive. But I think what we are to prepare ourselves for is potentially the kind of combination of these worlds. When we talk animation, VFX, and we look at the world of gaming as an example, these are all worlds from a consumer point of view. It's really limited time, and they are so easily moving from one to the other. I visualize a scenario, literally the next 4 or 5 years, we will literally be able to take on our screen and curate individually the world that we want, which will have a combination of a gameplay, a video playing at the same time, you choosing the right audio track that goes with it. And I think in that context, it's extremely important that as a nation, we prepare ourselves for the future, because this is really the new battleground, as it were. And if it is, as we've discussed for several decades now, the entire aspect of the softer power, I think the government of India, with the initiative, has done a marvelous job in putting this forward. Most of us on this committee kept on referencing to an action which another government 3 decades back had taken, which is really enabling the software services industry. And we tried to draw upon an analogy that what happened at that point in time and what led to a very, very significant, almost like a IT superpower status for us. Even in this, when we look at it, if you recollect one of the first drafts which were put out, there was a target of almost 90 billion by 2030, with the possibility of 2 million jobs that can get created from this world. And even at that level, it was still to be about 3% of world market. So I think, it's really going to be up to the imagination of industry now to try and gain as much attention and as much of market share in this extremely rapidly growing industry. I feel that in this entire space, when we, the other sort of tailwinds that are in our favor is the young demographic that we've got. We have demonstrated in the last 5 to 6 years becoming by far the lowest data traffic market in the world, dropping tariffs from about $3.5, $4 for a gig of data to potentially now $2 for 30 gigs of data, and from a data starved to a data abundant market. Along with that, the importance of telling stories and narrative, which are local, which are our own, is another element of soft power, which, one cannot highlight enough. And, all of us have spent a lot of time, including with the government and their receptiveness to this, that just as our cinema, was able to narrate our unique stories in a certain way, it is this entire space of AVGC and the extension of that through XR, the metaverse, will become the new battleground and the new playgrounds. And why should we be restricted to playing games with virtual worlds and metaverse that's been created, which is not necessarily, our own narrative and story. And I think the foundation to this policy is going to aid that also very, very significantly. So I think in every way, when you look at it, when I go back, somebody was mentioning, I think it was Ashish who spoke about, how we've led up to this place. And I'd like to, again, both to the audience and those who've joined online, narrate that when you look at the Indian media entertainment sector, there are certain uniqueness that we've got. Very, very few nations in the world have the worlds of music and video come together. Our cinema, music is an integral part of that. And that led to its own little nuances. And that is the reason why, whilst this policy is being done and being introduced by the government with the intention of enabling more and more participation locally from the domestic market, but it's equally, I feel, an extremely inclusive policy which welcomes every global participant to come in, participate, sort of make in India, but make for the world, as it were. And to Sesha's point, there's absolutely right. When we are watching some of these movies, these days it's become fashionable to sit through the end credits because you also want to watch, the after on story. And in that process, what we are witnessing is 2,500, 3,000 scrolls of people. And you're observing that 35–40% of them are, it's a Singh, it's a Gupta, it's a Chandra, it's whatever that's happening, along with a Lee and a Kwao, as it were, from every part of the world. So it's something which we are very, very excited about. And as far as gaming is concerned, I'm sure Rajan will have a lot to talk about as well. But just to give you a very, very quick summary to that, what was very heartening was that we were able to spend time within the subcommittee into articulating this across segments, from as basic as casual mobile gaming, talk about elements which are linked to RMG, fantasy, go into the space of esports, also look at gaming from a perspective of gaming and gamification, gaming and training. We had conversations about how gaming and drone warfare also at times can go hand in hand, and therefore the need for us to look at that. So I think we're very, very happy and delighted with the substance that's been put in, the kind of conversations that went in, and the fact that we looked at this from the prism of how do we educate the younger generation in bringing this out. And that's something that you all will talk about in the coming sort of sessions. So delighted once again to be part of this and to contribute in every way possible. And as they say, I think, India is really ready to take on in a very significant way and play a much, much more active role in this world. And it couldn't be happening at a time where we're at the cusp of 5G and the broader metaverse becoming an enabler for all of this.
Thank you. Thank you, Neeraj. That's beautifully articulated. I think the two things that you said, one of them we mentioned earlier on in my curtain raiser, which was that technology is not what changes. Consumers change. Technology sometimes tries hard to keep up with it. That's one thought. The second is, with no offense to anyone that's in the technology panels in this room, but they will agree with me, because I've always said, I think at last Summit FX, that technology never invented or created anything. It was created by the power of ideas. Ideas create what you do in content. Ideas create what you do in technology. Ideas, and I think basically, I mean, those who are young, those of us who employ young people, those of us who train young people, those of us who bring them into this is I think this policy is the one that's going to push ideas more than anything else. I've got Rajan in between a rock and a hard place, because we are going to finish this and all head for lunch and then come back quite quickly. But Rajan, please, from the perspective of the multi-stakeholders that are all part of something we just call one word, games, can you try and give us a sense of, where innovation in each of these sectors are taking us? Where are things converging? Where are the overlaps, and how will the policy really help to happen? I think the secretary spoke this morning of the fact that while INB very much has the remit on the content side, but here is an industry for the first time asking the government and not the other way around, can you please, create sense and sensibility around some regulation? So if you can, just share that with the audience, please.
Sure. Thanks, Biren. And, it's been over 3 hours since morning, and, you're absolutely right. We've had several discussions on various aspects of this unique, combination of AVGC, XR, and I'm going to add a little more to it to kind of complete that flavor as we speak along. But, to your last point, right, where you just left it off to me, and when you mentioned that technology, is the enabler to, serve the consumer in a particular way. I think if we look at the history of video gaming, I think it's very important why India is where we are compared to where the world is. So if you look at the industry, the way, what you said, the word gaming is referred to, is a $180 billion global industry, right? There is the console-led industry, which is, about 45-50 billion. There is the PC gaming industry, about of the equivalent size. And there's this fast-growing mobile gaming industry. So if you really look at the pie chart, right, here is one sector or one kind of aspect of gaming that is led and driven by a very different kind of a consumer behavior, right? Where it is, the time spent, the size and scale, the kind of device that you need to game have all changed drastically. So at a time when the world, which has traditionally seen video gaming for the past 50 years and has demanded and commanded a large part of that market share through console and PC, there was a country like India where we really never bought as many consoles, and every large company that tried to, penetrate the market always faced that resistance on price as a capital expense, to buy that. And what has changed with mobile gaming? And to add to the complexity, the business models around that, the entire free-to-play approach, and then, pay as you go, the revenue sources coming from in-app purchases and advertising, has all changed from where you were actually spending a fixed amount, to see that. And, Biren, to your point on technology, right? It's like I come from a business family, third generation. We've had large industries in Southeast Asia. One of our areas was a joint venture with Pioneer. And I still remember my first thing after I got back from NASA and from the US to Thailand to manage that operation was how we made Thailand the third largest market in the world after the US and Japan for laserdiscs. Now, many of us might not even know, but laserdisc used to cost about $100, and the viewing experience was far, far greater than the video cassette. And overnight, when the Thai crisis hit and the DVD came in, technology came in, that medium completely disappeared. Even today, we own rights to say Die Hard, etc. on laserdisc, and it means nothing, right? From a business model perspective, right? So the technology, the mediums, the platforms will change, and the consumer will move. And I think that's the beauty of where India is sitting today. So if we really look at the future with gaming in this context, I think we can see why it is such an important driver of the future. Now, to add, as I said, one additional alphabet to this AVGC, I'm going to add the word E after the G, and I would go AVG plus E, CXR or whatever. And the reason I'm saying that G and E go together, the E is esports. Because, when we look at gaming as an ecosystem, right, there's this casual gamer, the large top of the funnel, who is coming in, getting involved in gaming, competing with others, etc., to people who are playing mid-core games, which are where you need a very strong nuance to be able to, beat consistently the other player. You need to practice, you need to become that, and ultimately you become a professional gamer. And the professional gamer of an esports large championship is eventually going to go and win a medal for the country. And, as we talked about it earlier today as well, and a lot of those stars will come, like in any other sport for a country like India, from tier 2, tier 3 kind of, cities, the sports champions. And the sports kind of training that is required is exactly like probably any other sport. And I think that's where India's true potential will get unlocked. And as one actually looks at it a little deeper, and you'll understand the nuances over the next, few months and years as it unlocks for India, we'll realize how the gaming and esports are so strongly interlinked. So through our jet synthesis approach here, we have actually tied up all of that to see how, we can then find a way where an Indian game can be something that the world will compete for a medal. And I think, to me, that's the potential of where India can go. So it's not only make in India for the world, it's make in India for India, and use that to kind of lead the world is another way to look at it. Because while we might say we have 500 million gamers, 17% of our downloads, in the world are in India on gaming. A large part of our gaming titles are international titles. So how do we really create core Indian games? So we've taken like an approach on cricket, whether it's with Sachin Tendulkar, Sachin real cricket. We have a 60% global market share on simulated cricket. And now these are the kind of sports we believe that could probably go there. There are so many other global sports, but how do we really see India unlocking itself in that manner is one other way to look at it. And to complete the gaming ecosystem story, and I think Neeraj also referred to it, and we all talked about it, and this is also important, is there is fantasy gaming, there is real money gaming, there are different components to gaming, which are being defined by the consumers in India. And really, how do we therefore find a way, that we can do justice both at the center, state level to see what that could mean like. And maybe the late afternoon session today, we're going to bring some of those stakeholders here as well to be able to enable you to understand and appreciate how those gaming companies are looking at some of, the legacy for India. So it's a very interesting and exciting time for gaming at a juncture when we always say, has India's time come? And the convergence word that we've used is going to bring all of this meaningfully together. So I'll stop here, but just wanted to use this to answer some of those questions that you posed to me. Thank you.
We have time for one question. So we'll take one question and then we're breaking for lunch because we are 3 or 4 minutes past. We've been running bang on time, which is fantastic. And yes, you have to ask us a question though. While the mic comes up, I just want to make the announcement that at 2:15, you're going to have a power panel, because what we are doing is, speaking of convergence, we are going to combine the session on skills and the session on education into one power-packed panel, which is going to define how India is going to go from 1.5% of world market to 3%, because they have magically solved the way in which that should happen. So if anybody here wants to know how that's going to happen for you, for your studios, for your IP, for your investments, that is the secret that they're going to unveil to you between 2:15 until the end of the time, for their kids, nephews, and generations unborn. So with those words, we'll come to the magic question.
As an industry with an evolving future, having the credential of being the champion services sector, what proactive initiatives have you taken? I'm talking about the industry in exploring new application markets. I'm talking about application markets because as of now, it's mostly focused in terms of media and entertainment and education sector. But what I feel, the potential is enormous. There are n number of markets which can be explored. So
your question is very clear, sir.
Yeah.
Very clear question. You are going to be in for a complete treat, because you are going to hear from many people who are in the startup panel how they have already got tremendous traction in areas that are beyond the conventional media and entertainment, number one. Number two, you are going to hear from the panel that comes on the tremendous contribution made in different ways, because today people who are in production have to solve for training on their own. And the most difficult skill sets that did not exist in India 10 years ago in more than 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 people are today produced in hundreds of people in studios, whether it is fur, hair and groom, rigging, effects. These are the skills which people, when we were a back office, as some people still choose to say, I don't know why, those skills did not exist then, but they exist today for the specific reason that we do everything end to end. And I think you're going to hear about that. And that is something that we would like to transfer back to educators who are bringing people into the skills market and into the education market. So all of the questions that you answered are things that are not plans anymore. They're being actively done. And I would hazard a guess that industry today spends somewhere upward of $50 to $75 million a year in making that happen themselves, which I think now, with the enablement of the policy, with the grants we've asked for, with things that are potentially going to come, will be clear to all of us in the near future. With that, may I please invite everyone to lunch. Please be back at 2:15, or you're going to miss some real gems of wisdom. Thank you very much to the panel. A big hand to Shesha, Rajan, Ashish, and Chaitanya, and Neeraj, long distance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Lunch is at Regency 1 and 2, Regency 1. And I request everybody to please be here sharp at 2:15 because we're going to start the next session. Thank you.
India has the second fastest growing digital economy in the world. By 2025, India will have 850 million smartphone users and 200 million smart TVs, collectively consuming more than 5 hours of video data per device per day. India is increasingly becoming digital, shifting rapidly to web collaboration, e-commerce, and e-payments. Emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT, robotics, and the emergence of 5G are going to extend the usage of the internet to billions of devices. India is also witnessing a shift of enterprise workloads from their captive data centers to public clouds or hosted private clouds due to the pay-as-you-use models and enormous scalability they offer. Enterprises and the government of India are now focusing more than ever before on self-reliance in their supply chains within the country, also leading to more data localization. All these trends are leading to the data explosion in India. To store and process this ever-increasing data growth and centralized cloud workloads, India needs large-scale data center parks instead of standalone data center buildings. These data center parks need to be scalable in terms of space, power, internet connectivity, support services, and a wide array of innovative value-added IT services. Yota, India's youngest managed data center service provider, is building data center parks in Navi Mumbai. Chennai, Greater Noida near New Delhi, and has upcoming projects in Mumbai, Pune, Kolkata, and Gift City in Gujarat. Yota is backed by India's leading real estate, energy, and construction major, the Hiranandani Group. What makes Yota unique is its ownership of resources, massive economies of scale, ability to tap into vast amounts of renewable power for its customers, and unmatched expertise and experience in data center design, construction, and operations. Yota NM1 is Asia's largest and the world's second largest Uptime Institute Tier 4 certified facility that is spread across 820,000 square feet with a capacity of 7,200 racks, 50 megawatt power, and 4 fiber paths connecting the major telecom operators and internet exchanges. It is located at Yota Data Center Park within the 600-acre Hiranandani Fortune City